Messages of support rolling in from across the U.S. after former President Biden announced he has been diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Brooke Singman is here with more. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, guys. Former President Biden's team made the announcement yesterday saying he was diagnosed with prostate cancer characterized by a Gleason score of 9 with metastasis to the bone. While this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. The former president's team says he's now reviewing treatment options, and now political leaders on both sides of the aisle are offering their support to Biden and his family. President Trump sharing a kind message on Truth Social saying, quote, Melania and I are saddened to hear about Joe Biden's recent medical diagnosis. We extend our warmest and best wishes to Jill and the family, and we wish Joe a fast and successful recovery. And House Speaker Mike Johnson saying the Johnson family will be joining the countless others who are praying for the former president in the wake of his diagnosis. We also heard from former Vice President Kamala Harris, who reacted to the diagnosis, saying, quote, Joe is a fighter, and I know he will face this challenge with the same strength, resilience, and optimism that have always defined his life and leadership. We are hopeful for a full and speedy recovery. And former President Obama also praying for his former vice president's full recovery, saying, quote, nobody has done more to find breakthrough treatments for cancer in all its forms than Joe. I am certain he will fight this challenge with his trademark resolve and grace. According to the NIH, prostate cancer is generally a more treatable type of cancer, even when it has spread further. It has a 5-year relative survival rate, and that means the percentage of people alive 5 years after diagnosis is roughly 98%. Guys?
It's got to be very difficult and emotional news to receive, given family history with his son and his Cancer Moonshot initiative. So we're all praying for him and his family.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show this morning. My name is Benny Johnson. This is the Benny Show, live at 9 a.m. for a emergency White House press briefing. You can see the front row seated. We have a feeling that Caroline Leavitt, who announced this briefing just 1 hour ago, will be out soon. So in our endeavoring mission and our obligation to you to always be on top of the news cycle and always be live and always bring you the most brutally accurate news. And we're going to get into this Biden surprise cancer diagnosis and what we know to be true. They're lying to you. They're lying to you. We're going to set the entire table up today. We also have some excellent doctors who will be joining the program, including Dr. Drew, who it's his first time on the show, but also Dr. Stephen Quay, who went viral yesterday by announcing you don't just get prostate cancer either. Got prostate cancer, Gleason score 9, metastasized to the bone. That doesn't just happen. Okay, we're going to talk about all of it today, and a reminder that the press briefing will be live on this program. And, well, the little door just opened. A little man with a laptop just popped out. It's always fun to watch. Little man with a laptop just popped out of the door. We'll see. We'll be in Washington, D.C. this week at the White House for an event with RFK and Donald Trump. That'll be on Thursday. We'll bring you live coverage of that and some other surprise and exciting announcements later in the week. But, of course, we have breaking news here. I hope that we get a chance to just set the table here about Biden and how we're going to talk about him on the program. Joe, you have to begin by stating that I don't think there's a single worse president in my lifetime or any lifetime than Joe Biden. You know, Joe Biden got Americans murdered in Afghanistan. Joe Biden brought 25 million criminal aliens into this country who've raped and pillaged and killed Americans. They've also smuggled a lot of children. It's awful, something that we take personally on this program. And Joe Biden, in his adherence to whatever scheme they had running in the White House, you know, Joe Biden was clearly in on it, even though somebody else was making the decisions. They lied to the American people. We deserve to know the health of our president. We deserve to know if the president is suffering from what doctors tell us is a terminal diagnosis. And so this is something that is a crisis for our nation. Now, that's me setting the table about what I think about. We've been very, very clear what we think about Joe Biden on this channel. There are political questions, and then there are human questions. And so the human question for us is going to be, we never wish cancer on any human ever. especially no American, right? We just want to focus on this country. We're never going to wish harm on any American, and we never have, ever in the history of this show. We've never celebrated any type of terminal diagnosis or anything like that, no matter who it is. It won't happen, okay? So you have to separate the human element from this, that we never want anyone to get cancer. It's a horrible disease, and I've suffered cancer, and so have you, I bet, in your family. So many tens of hundreds of millions of Americans have suffered cancer. Nobody's wishing that on anyone, all right? That is completely separate from the diagnostic and constitutional question of who knew what. How long did they hide this cancer? Did Joe Biden have cancer his entire presidency? That's my guess. That's my guess based on an extensive series of phone calls I had last night and conversations that we're going to have with doctors live on the show. So I'm not going to sit here and spout off without doing my own research and reporting, but that is a matter of fact. We're going to lay those facts out for you today. The worst cover-up and the most dangerous cover-up in American history is unfolding before us right now. And it's actually worse than we ever thought with Joe Biden. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been right about this. We have the receipts. We have the proof. And so let's go today. Our show is brought to you by Advantage Gold. Advantage Gold is the precious metals company whom we trust. Right now, gold is outperforming every asset. I had a guy who's in banking over this weekend, and we're doing our best. We got 4 little kids. We're doing our best to try and break out. My wife's no longer pregnant. We're trying to break out, be social, with people. And he's just well done on the whole gold investment. That's what this guy's a high level banker for a major bank in America. It's well done with the gold investment. You kill, you're invested in gold. You're killing it right now. The rest of the market very teetery. Okay, this is the time for gold and silver. And right now, there's a way out of these rocky markets, moving your IRA, 401k, or TSP into physical gold and silver, assets that have helped protect wealth through all time, but definitely through major economic crises. Advantage Gold is offering everyday Americans how to do it with a step-by-step info kit, plus up to $1,000 in free silver bonuses when you qualify for just attending. Text Benny to 85545 to learn how to break free from a broken system before the next leg of this crash wipes out more savings. Text Benny to 85545. Send that text now. Data and message rates apply. Performance may vary. You can always consult your financial and tax professional. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We got the seating of the social media chair there. That's what just happened. You can see the door sliding. Some guy with a beard didn't recognize who it was. That's John Gizzy right there, wandering in. What's that? Is Gizzy still at Newsmax? All right. This is, of course, the question that we are going to take head on. And we have adult conversations on this channel. We had adult conversations all last week. We brought in experts on Diddy, experts on Epstein, experts on the deep state. This happens all the time on this channel. You have to have, you're an adult, you can take it, is the way that we look at this. And so you got to have gunpowder in your gut and an iron spine. So ladies and gentlemen, what's going on with Joe Biden? Joe Biden yesterday announced that he had prostate cancer. Curious timing of the announcement, but ladies and gentlemen, we'll get to that after Caroline Leavitt, who's live right now at the White House. Let's go.
Today, we have a very busy day, so we wanted to kick off the week right this morning after a great trip last week. It's good to see all of you back in Washington. This afternoon in the Rose Garden, President Trump, alongside First Lady Melania Trump, will sign the Take It Down Act into law. First Lady Melania Trump was instrumental in getting this important legislation passed. The Take It Down Act will protect victims of digital exploitation, hold internet platforms accountable by requiring them to remove such imagery from their platforms, and provide justice for victims by allowing prosecutors to go after those who publish non-consensual explicit images online. The First Lady met with members in the House and the Senate, survivors and their families, and advocates throughout the process to get this bill across the finish line. We are grateful for the First Lady's hard work and dedication to this issue. And moving forward, she will continue to champion the well-being of our nation's children through her Be Best agenda. I know the president looks forward to signing that bill into law later this afternoon, and we will see you all there. In other news, the One Big Beautiful Bill passed the House Budget Committee last night, bringing it one step closer to final passage. The One Big Beautiful Bill is perfectly named because it represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity to deliver on the Make America Great Again agenda responsible for President Trump's landslide victory on November 5th. The America First policies in this bill are the reason why Republicans currently have the majority in Congress right now. Passing this bill is what voters sent Republicans to Washington to accomplish. And that's why it's essential that every Republican in the House and the Senate unites behind President Trump and passes this popular and essential legislative package. This bill will be the single most pro-small business, pro-family, and pro-American worker legislation ever. This bill will give Americans the largest tax cuts in our nation's history. When Republicans pass the bill, Americans will be keeping more of their hard-earned money and taking home much bigger paychecks. The One Big Beautiful Bill will deliver some of President Trump's central campaign promises. No tax on tips for our hardworking waiters, waitresses, and service workers. No tax on overtime for our law enforcement officers, our firefighters, and all those Americans who are putting in extra hours to make ends meet. And a large tax deduction on interest payments for Americans who purchase American-made cars. Despite desperate Democrat lies, the biggest beneficiary of this tax cut will be working-class Americans and their families. Americans earning between $30,000 and $80,000 per year will pay about 15% less in taxes after this legislation is passed. And according to a brand new paper from the White House Council of Economic Advisors, the average family with 2 children's take-home pay will be up to $13,000 higher because of the increase in wages and reductions in tax obligations. The CEA study also said that the average overtime worker receives a tax cut of roughly $2,000. Again, this is great news for our nurses, our police officers, and all those who work overtime to make ends meet across our country. Put simply, President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill will be a boon for working class America. This One Big Beautiful Bill is also pro-family. It will increase the child tax credit to $2,500 per child, establish optional savings account for newborn babies with a $1,000 credit added, and strengthen paid family leave. This bill also delivers historic tax relief to America's seniors by allowing middle and low-income Social Security recipients to deduct an additional $4,000 in payments from their taxable income. If Democrats get their way and the Trump tax cuts are not extended, Americans will face the largest tax hike in history to the tune of $4 trillion. Republicans must not side with Democrats in helping them raise taxes. The One Big Beautiful Bill also provides critical protections of Medicaid, which will strengthen and preserve the program for decades to come through common sense efforts to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. Medicaid will no longer be used to pay for barbaric gender mutilation procedures on minor children. And the 1.4 million illegal aliens who are currently improperly receiving Medicaid benefits will be kicked off the program to preserve it for hardworking American citizens who need it. President Trump and Republicans are protecting Medicaid benefits for pregnant women, children, disabled individuals, low-income seniors and families, and the most vulnerable Americans in our society. And that's what Democrats are so angry about. Basic Medicaid protections that will stop the funding of transgender insanity and illegal aliens from ripping off American taxpayers. As you all know, over his first 4 months in office, President Trump ended the previous administration's open border crisis and secured our homeland in record time, all using executive authority. Now Congress needs to act. The One Big Beautiful Bill is the most significant investment in our nation's border patrol and law enforcement agents in our nation's history. The bill ensures that President Trump's popular and successful border security measures are made permanent. Republicans have the backs of Border Patrol and ICE agents who were put through hell over the past 4 years and have quickly worked to secure our southern border. And that's why this bill gives them more resources to do their jobs, including a $10,000 much-needed bonus to ICE agents and Border Patrol agents over the next 4 years. To provide those brave agents with desperately needed reinforcements on the ground, The bill allows for the hiring of thousands of new ICE personnel, customs officers, and Border Patrol agents. These significant hirings will empower President Trump to continue delivering on his promise to carry out the largest mass deportation in the history of our country. Again, that is a promise that Republicans made to American voters. It's a promise they were elected on, and it's a promise Republicans on Capitol Hill need to keep: secure our border. To supplement those efforts, the bill's funds will fund the completion of President Trump's signature border wall. As a result, 701 miles of primary wall, 900 miles of river barriers, 629 miles of secondary barriers, and 141 miles of vehicle and pedestrian barriers will be constructed when this bill passes, along with cutting-edge technology to secure our homeland from dangerous illegal alien invaders. This bill also advances our national security and defense interests by ensuring the United States military has the necessary resources to remain the strongest and most lethal fighting force in the world. The bill will provide resources for the construction of President Trump's Golden Dome to safeguard Americans from potential attacks, give the Coast Guard resources to build more modernized ships, and the Air Force resources to acquire better planes. If all of those incredible things were not enough, the big, beautiful bill also finally modernizes air traffic control in America, a bipartisan issue. The bill will allow President Trump to deliver on his promise to overhaul and update our air traffic control systems to keep Americans flying as safe and efficiently as possible. The previous administration failed to act and do this themselves, despite repeated warnings from the GAO, which has resulted in unacceptable delays at major airports like Newark that the Trump administration is working hard to address. When the one big, beautiful bill passes, we will replace the current antiquated system. The FAA will enhance safety in our skies, reduce delays, and power the future of air travel in the United States. That's just some of what this historic legislation will accomplish. It is absolutely essential that Republicans unite behind the one big, beautiful bill and deliver on President Trump's agenda. There is no time to waste. Americans gave Republicans a once-in-a-generation opportunity to course-correct our country over many wrongs over the past 4 years. And Americans are counting on Republicans to work as hard as President Trump is in this White House every day on Capitol Hill. Send this legislation to his desk as soon as possible for his signature. Here in our new media seat today, we have Liam Cosgrove, the White House correspondent for Zero Hedge. With that, Liam, please kick us off.
Thank you, Caroline. So my first question is on foreign policy.
Sure.
The president has made several moves towards peace in multiple fronts: India, Pakistan with the Houthis, talking with Iran and talking with Putin. Biden didn't even talk to Putin for the entire span of the war, which is crazy considering two nuclear powers were engaged in a proxy war. So I do admire these moves by the current president, I'll be honest. However, as of today, we are still funding both Israel's and Ukraine's wars. So can Americans expect to finally be done financing foreign wars at some point? Do you consider that one of the president's goals?
Well, I think I can summarize the president's foreign policy agenda with two words: America first. And that means putting the American people and the American taxpayer first. And that's why the president is moving as quickly as he possibly can and working overtime to end these conflicts in both Israel and in Gaza, and also the Russia-Ukraine war. As you all know, the president will be speaking with Putin at 10 o'clock. He plans to call President Zelensky when that call concludes. I spoke to the president about that call at 10 o'clock. I don't want to get ahead of those very important conversations, but of course you will hear directly from the president or me after those calls conclude today. So you can expect that. As for Israel and Gaza, the president continues to not only himself, but his national security team engage in talks on both sides of this conflict. The president made it very clear to Hamas that he wanted to see all hostages released. And last week, when we were flying out of town, there was great news on that front with the return of Eden Alexander, who is the last remaining hostage in Gaza. So to answer your question, the president is always thinking about the American people, the American taxpayer first. He wants these conflicts to end, not just to save money, but most importantly, to save lives.
Thank you. And my only other question for you is, so over the weekend, President Trump posted Truth Social a video highlighting what most people call the Clinton body count, which is the strange number of suicides that seem to happen in Clinton circles. I have a headline here from the Washington Post that said, Trump peddles false conspiracy theories tying the Clintons to several deaths. So I just wanted to highlight real quick, this wasn't in Trump's video, but this is from the Arkansas Times. and it's the death of Mark Middleton, who was a former Clinton White House aide who was found dead on a Clinton Foundation property. And I'll just quote from the Arkansas Times. Middleton apparently shot himself in the chest with a shotgun and also hung himself from a tree with an extension cord. So I have no idea how somebody commits suicide that way, but if the Washington Post is here, maybe you can enlighten us as to how that was actually a suicide. So anyways, that's just a lead into my question about the most famous Clinton-related suicide, which is that of Jeffrey Epstein. There's still a lot of questions around that case. You've released phase 1 of the Epstein files. What was missing from that is any connection to his ties to intelligence agencies, and that's really the whole story, that not just trafficking young girls, but doing it on behalf of intelligence agencies, and even potentially as part of a blackmail ring with potential ties to the Israeli government. So for phase 2, when can we expect it? Will it have information pertaining to those aspects of the Epstein case?
I know the Attorney General has committed to releasing those files. I would defer you to the Department of Justice on her timeline, but when she has made a promise in the past, she has kept it, and I'm certain that she will in this case as well. Rachel.
Thanks so much, Caroline. The president set a 2-week deadline for Ukraine and Russia to negotiate a deal. That time is now up. Does the president intend to set a new deadline on this call with President Putin? And how much longer is he willing to give these talks?
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of the specifics of the conversation the president will be having with President Putin in less than an hour this morning. But he has made clear throughout the entirety of this conflict, since he inherited it from Joe Biden. Don't forget, this is a war that began because of the previous administration's incompetence and weakness, and President Trump is working very hard to fix it. He has made it clear to both sides that he wants to see a peaceful resolution and a ceasefire as soon as possible. But as for specifics on a timeline, I won't get ahead of the president.
And just on the goals for this call in particular, is the goal to get Putin to agree to a ceasefire? Is the goal to lead to some sort of in-person negotiations with Putin and the president?
Well, I think, again, we'll see how the call goes. And the president has made it clear his goal is to see a ceasefire and to see this conflict come to an end. And he's grown weary and frustrated with both sides of the conflict. The president and his team have put an enormous amount of effort in solving this very complicated war that, again, began because of the last administration's weakness.
Does he still want to meet Putin personally?
I think the president would certainly be open to that, but let's see how this call goes today.
What's the status of the secondary sanctions package? The president's been talking about that. You haven't imposed them yet, but is that still on the table?
I think everything's on the table, yes. And again, I won't get ahead of the president in any commitments or decisions, but certainly it's something he's been looking at and discussing. Elena.
Hi, Ken. I want to ask you about the House budget bill. So does the president agree with Republicans behind this bill that Medicaid work requirements should be implemented as soon as 2026?
So the president wants to preserve and protect Medicaid for Americans who this program was intended for, the most vulnerable in our society: pregnant women, low-income families, seniors, those who truly need these benefits. And it should be going to people who physically cannot work. We want to see able-bodied Americans at least working 20 hours per week, whether that's part-time or full-time, whether that's even looking for work or volunteering for 20 hours a week if they are receiving Medicaid. These are common sense provisions. These are common sense changes that were actually introduced by former Democrat President Clinton. They've been supported by every Democrat president since, including the previous president, Joe Biden. But again, these are common sense reforms to ensure that those that this program was intended for receive those benefits.
And then just a quick follow-up. Is the president okay with this bill adding to the deficit?
This bill does not add to the deficit. In fact, according to the Council of Economic Advisors, this bill will save $1.6 trillion. And the president absolutely understands and hears the concerns of fiscal conservatives and of Americans who want to get our fiscal house in order. That's what the intention of this bill is. There's $1.6 trillion worth of savings in this bill. That's the largest savings for any legislation that has ever passed Capitol Hill in our nation's history. The next bill that even comes close was $800 billion. That's less than half of the savings that we see in the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so the goal of this bill is to produce economic growth, to cut taxes, and to get our fiscal house in order. And this is the right step in the right direction towards doing that.
Thanks.
Edward.
Yes, thanks.
And then I'll go to you.
Okay, thanks,
You're
guys.
welcome.
I want to get the president's reaction to Moody's downgrading the credit rating of the United States.
Sure. Well, look, the president talked about this over the weekend. The Secretary of Treasury also talked about it. When you look at the world has confidence in the United States of America and our economy once again. The president just last week secured trillions of dollars in investments from countries in the Middle East. We have seen trillions of dollars of investments flowing into our economy since the president took office. That is because America or people around the world have confidence in the United States of America. And if you also just look at the raw economic data that we're seeing last week when we were out of town, inflation dropped once again. Oil prices are dropping, gas prices are dropping. The president has added nearly 500,000 jobs to the American economy already. So there's a lot of optimism in this economy, and the president disagrees with that assessment.
And I want to ask you one more thing, if I could. On your Middle East trip, the United Arab Emirates is getting some of the most advanced AI chips, and there's agreements there. The UAE is the newest member of BRICS. Is there a concern from the president that those chips and the technology will pass through to China, India, Russia, and Iran?
Part of going to the Middle East was to ensure that the United States, that this part of the region, our Gulf partners, know that the United States of America is there for them again, and that they should be investing in the United States, not in China. And these AI agreements, particularly the one the Secretary of Commerce signed in the UAE, has security guarantees to ensure that China is not getting the advantage, but the United States is getting the advantage when it comes to AI, and that the UAE and the U.S. are working hand in hand together to invest in this space. So read the agreements, there are security guarantees, and this was a great trip for the country, no doubt. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel has said today that Israel will take control of all of Gaza. Is that a goal that President Trump is comfortable with or that he supports?
I'll have to talk to the president about those comments as they just came, I believe, from the prime minister this morning, and I'll let him speak on that. The president has made it very clear he wants to see this conflict in the region end. He wants all hostages to be released. He was pleased that Eden Alexander was returned home safely to his loving family. The president spoke with Eden directly while we were traveling to the Middle East last week. As for the prime minister's comments, I'll let the president himself respond to those. Sure.
Two questions. One, how involved does the president intend to be directly in talking to House members about the bill over the next couple of weeks or the next week?
Sure. Well, over the weekend, the president was in direct conversation and communication with the Speaker of the House. He's been very involved. He always is. He's willing to pick up the phone when he is asked to. So he'll continue to be very engaged in this process with both House members and his friends on the Senate side as well.
And on former President Biden's cancer diagnosis, the president put out a very nice message on Truth Social. Has he talked to President Biden directly? Does he intend to call? What does he intend to say directly?
Not to my knowledge. I don't believe they have spoken, but I'm sure the president would be open to doing that. I spoke to him last night about the former president's cancer diagnosis, and the statement that he put out was the initial reaction he had with me on the phone as well. Peter.
Follow up on former President Biden. White House doctors may have missed the early stages of his prostate cancer. So is President Trump worried about the quality of care that presidents get here?
Not as far as President Trump is concerned. The White House physician we have here is phenomenal, and the team of physicians that take care of the president, particularly at Walter Reed Medical Center, are great. The president had his physical recently, as you know. He had perfect results. He's in very good shape. I think those of you who traveled to the Middle East with us last week can attest to the president's endurance. And by the way, I will add, we returned home from a very long and tiring trip last week. And on Saturday, where was the president? In the Oval Office working all day. He doesn't stop. He doesn't quit. He's in great health, and he trusts his physicians.
Two more things. Putin ghosted everybody at these peace talks last week. As President Trump phones him today to try to figure out an end to the Ukraine war, does he think that Putin is the good guy or the bad guy?
I'll let the president speak on that conversation later. He's made his feelings about both sides of this war quite clear throughout it. He wants to see it end.
And the last one, what does President Trump mean when he says that Taylor Swift is no longer hot?
Look, he is speaking about Taylor Swift's political views and how perhaps it has impacted the support of the American public for her work. And I will leave it at that. Annie, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Carolyn. I'm just going back one more time to the White House Medical Office because there seems to be some question about this with regard to President Biden's screening. Can you say whether or not President Trump is screened for prostate cancer as part of his physical?
To the best of my understanding, he is, but we can certainly check in with the White House physician and go back and look at that physical report.
And then just one other question. Recently, Stephen Miller at the White House made some comments about considering suspending habeas corpus. And I'm curious if there's any update on how the White House is exploring that option to enact the president's agenda.
I don't have any update at this time, but I can check in with our Deputy Chief of Staff. Mary Margaret, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. Given the ongoing revelations about the former president's mental acuity and how staff and media covered that up, especially with the release of this book, 2 days, I think, is there any interest in further scrutiny of Kevin O'Connor, the former president's physician?
I'll let the president speak on that. I spoke to the president again about the former president's health diagnosis last night, and he wanted to extend his warmest wishes to the former president and his family. But as for any further action, I'll let the president speak on that first. Michelle.
Vice President Vance's meeting with Zelensky. Can you share any more information on that?
My understanding was it was a good meeting, a productive meeting, and we're grateful that the vice president did it and that he also went to the Pope's first Mass in Rome. I also have an update on that. The vice president passed along a letter to the Pope from the president and from the First Lady, extending their warm wishes and inviting them to the White House as soon as they possibly can come. Michelle.
On Iran, Steve Witkoff said yesterday that continued enrichment is a red line for the U.S. The Iranian foreign minister says that's going to continue no matter what. How committed is the U.S. to that red line, and what's the next step for the next round of talks?
We are 100% committed to that red line. The president, Special Envoy Witkoff, Secretary Rubio have made that incredibly clear, not just to the American public, but also in those discussions that Special Envoy Witkoff has had directly with the Iranians.
And the next round of talks?
I don't have an update for you, but we can get one. To the back row. Go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. South Africa's president says he's going to come to the White House to meet with President Trump on Wednesday. What are the president's expectations for that trip? And South Africa's president recently said he believes the folks that have been resettled here recently are cowards running away from problems in South Africa. Does the White House have a response to that?
So I did see the South African president put out that statement. I want to confirm on our end with our Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, and we'll get back to you on that. Monica.
Thanks, Caroline. You mentioned the president and the first lady are signing the historic Take It Down Act this afternoon. I'm curious to know, what are some of the repercussions or consequences for these online platforms or perpetrators that won't comply with the act?
Well, what this bill does, it takes the initial step to ensure that prosecutors are able to take down, that's why it's called the Take It Down Act, platforms that are allowing this sexually explicit content on their platform. So it gives them more leeway to go after them as they see fit. But as for specific repercussions, I would defer you to the Department of Justice of how they plan to implement this bill once it is signed later today. Brian.
Yes, thank you. You said in your opening statement, you talked about this MAGA baby savings account. Exactly how would that work? Who would be eligible for it? I'm assuming women would be eligible for that.
Yes. So one of the provisions in the One Big Beautiful Bill, as I said, this is a very pro-family piece of legislation. Not only does it increase the child tax credit, but it also includes MAGA baby savings accounts for children that are born before January 1st, 2024, under 8 years old, U.S. citizens, and have at least one parent with a valid Social Security number. And when this tax provision becomes law, the child, if the parents seek to do this, will be set up with a savings account. Essentially, it's a 401k for a newborn baby. And child's relatives, their parents, can contribute up to $5,000 per year of after-tax dollars annually to that account. And then later in the baby's life, at age 25, savings account holders can withdraw up to the full balance of the account. Upon reaching 30, the account holders can access the full balance of the account for any purpose desired. So it's a great initiative for new parents, new mothers who want to set up this savings account for their children. Weijia.
Thank you, Caroline. President Trump and his top economic aides have repeatedly said that Americans will not pay the cost of tariffs. In fact, last week, Lutnick said people have to drop the, quote, silly arguments that consumers would pay the cost. But over the weekend, as you know, the president posted that Walmart should eat the tariffs and not charge the value customer anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. So Does he acknowledge that if companies don't absorb the full cost, Americans will have to pay?
Well, first of all, the CEO of Walmart made those comments about the tariffs on an earnings call where CEOs, I believe, are legally obligated to give the most dire warnings and forecasts to their investors and stakeholders. The reality is the president has always maintained Chinese producers will be absorbing the cost of these tariffs. And that is why China was so quick to hustle to the negotiating table with the United States of America. They need our markets. They need our consumers. And I would again point you to the inflation report that came out last week showing that inflation is declining in large part because energy prices are dropping across the board in this country because of the president's robust energy agenda that he has taken since January 20th. So the president is committed to ensuring that prices remain low for American consumers, and he maintains the position that foreign countries will absorb these tariffs.
What does he mean by "I'll be watching" to Walmart?
He'll be watching, seeing what they're doing. Jennifer.
On the gift plane from Qatar, 3 things. Is there a timeline for the U.S. receiving that plane? Do you know how long it will take to retrofit the plane to presidential standards? And thirdly, has the intelligence community, security folks, have they weighed in on whether that plane can actually be secured to presidential standards?
I'm glad you brought up this question because I was watching the American press spew a lot of misinformation about the plane donation last week when we were abroad. Let's be very clear. The government of Qatar, the Qatari family, has offered to donate this plane to the United States Air Force, where that donation will be accepted according to all legal and ethical obligations. It will be retrofitted to the highest of standards by the Department of Defense and the United States Air Force. This plane is not a personal donation or a gift to the President of the United States. And everyone who wrote that last week should go and correct their stories because this is a donation to our country and to the United States Air Force. As for a timeline, because it is the United States Air Force that is accepting the plane, I would defer you to them for specifics because the president, frankly, has nothing to do with it. It's the Air Force's project to take on. Sure. Elizabeth.
Thanks so much, Caroline. Did the president call fiscal conservatives who are hesitant to vote for the big, beautiful bill? And if so, what did they say? What did he say?
But I don't reveal the president's private discussions unless he gives me the liberty to, but he has been engaged in this process. He spoke to the Speaker of the House, and he will continue to make those phone calls if it's necessary for him. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline.
I'll go to both of you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Any updates on Greenland? Will the president be making any trips, and do we have any details you can share with us?
I don't have any future foreign trips to read out for you. We just returned home from one. But the president maintains the reasoning for Greenland's strategic purposes in the Arctic. And he continues to remain committed to the idea of obtaining Greenland in whatever means we can to advance our national security interests in the region.
Sure. Thank you, Caroline. I have a question. Was Lebanon part of the discussions during the Middle East tour? And did you meet with any Lebanese representatives?
To my knowledge, the president did not meet with any representatives from Lebanon, although he did talk about the election that they recently had there and how he hopes that Lebanon can come to a more peaceful place in their country and that we drive out Hezbollah, Iranian-backed Hezbollah proxies in Lebanon to ensure peace and prosperity in that country and also for the greater Middle Eastern region. And I would just add to that before I wrap up, because the president's call will begin in a few minutes. The president's historic tour to the Middle East last week truly reset our foreign policy agenda in that region. I think actually, in fact, the Washington Post had a headline, President Trump remakes U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. And that's absolutely true. He took a courageous and bold step to lift sanctions on Syria. He strengthened our ties with our Gulf partners, and he put Iran into a very difficult position because the United States of America is back. And I will summarize the president's trip with an anecdote that I heard directly from a member of one of the foreign delegations. I asked him how hopeful their country was when they learned President Trump won the election. And he told me when President Trump won the election, it was like the lights turned on in a dark room. For the past 4 years to the rest of the world, America was dark. We were unresponsive. We did not pick up the phone. We did not return calls. All of that has changed under the leadership of this president. And I think the world saw that last week with this historic and wildly successful trip. And the work continues. The president will be speaking to President Putin at 10 a.m. and we'll have a readout for you after that call. And we'll see you in the Rose Garden at 3 o'clock. Thanks, guys.
Boom, baby. Carolyn Levitt, wearing gold for the golden era. Unfortunately, none of the questions from the reporters were solid gold. I like the Epstein question, but you should have left it hang on the Clinton body count. I was texting White House staffers during this live saying, bring us to the social media chair. We have 100,000 people watching live across all of our platforms. Shout out to all of you. Nothing but love. Thank you. I love seeing everybody in the comment section, running from comment section to punch in with my fat thumbs myself, dropping emojis. We do, in fact, do everything we possibly can to deliver accurate, brutally accurate news to you, and we will be doing that right now. In the case of Joe Biden and the cover-up that wasn't asked about. What's going on with this exactly? Why did I say so a single reporter didn't ask the question about how it is impossible for Joe Biden to just have surprise Gleason score 9 prostate cancer metastasizing to his bone? Not a single reporter asked that question. So this is what we're going to get, huh? It's going to be us again, huh? It's going to be us moving the ball forward. That's fine. We're built for it. We're built for it. We're built to fight, aren't we, Klein? We are built to fight. We are built to brutally move forward the ball on the questions that are of most importance to the American public. Like, is this the single greatest cover-up in the history of the American presidency? Yes. Is the most dangerous and damaging one? Yes. We are staring down the barrel of a cynical, evil, illegal, dark, very, very demonic cover-up of what happened with Joe Biden and his cancer. It's terrible, and we're going to take it head on. And we're going to repeat the teaser here that you must be able to separate the diagnostics of Joe Biden's cancer from the human question, which is we're not going to celebrate anyone getting cancer. And of course, you won't find that here. We're not trying to be glib. We're trying to ensure this doesn't happen again because a massive fraud and lie was pulled on the American people. We were there from the outset. We were right from the outset. Holy smokes. Were we right? It was a year ago, in fact, that we popped up on social media and said, listen, Joe Biden is clearly not well. Joe Biden is sick. Here we go. Got it right here. This is our tweet, just to let you know that you're in the right spot here. If you want to have this conversation, you're in the right spot. We haven't shied away from this. We haven't been fearful about this. They lied to us that Joe Biden has COVID. Look at this year-old tweet. 10-month-old tweet. Joe Biden can barely walk. This is not COVID. Something horrible has happened. He's sick. This has been a massive cover-up, and here we are going viral. 7.5 million views last year. Who had the guts to say it? Not even the Fox News reporter had the balls to look the press secretary in the eye and be like, you know, it's impossible for Joe Biden to develop advanced prostate cancer metastasizing to his bones in 100 days. Because when this video was put up on social media, when we saw this video, this is the receipt. One of many receipts. I mean, we can go back years, quite frankly. Don't give ALX a challenge. He'll find it all. When this was put up on social media, everyone was just repeating the lie. Joe Biden has COVID. Feel bad for Joe Biden. Listen, the beautiful thing about what we do is that it's very easy to see who's been telling the truth the entire time, who has guts, who has the testicular fortitude to tell you the truth and be honest about the world around you, because you're an adult and you can take it. Joe Biden was riddled with cancer at this time. They were hiding his treatment, and maybe in the darkest possible recesses of the DNC, they were planning and plotting his death. You have to assume, given what we know about Joe Biden, that perhaps they didn't do the treatment for the cancer, assuming they'd be able to haul him across the finish line in 2024 and then install Kamala Harris when nature succumbed, it's just a polite way we're going to say this. How evil. Did they rob Joe Biden of actual early cancer treatment for this? Benny, you sound crazy. I'm not crazy. I have physicians in my neighborhood. I called them up and I talked with them. They treat cancer. My wife's treated cancer. As soon as I heard this, I went running downstairs. We'd been in the Gulf of America with our children. We live about 40 minutes from there. And I went running downstairs and I showed the announcement to my wife, and she says, "It's over. It's over. You don't come back from that." Again, we're not a sadistic family. We take absolutely no pleasure in that. And I'm not trying to cast doom or ill will. We're just going to spit facts here. Again, you're adults, you can take it. So I just want to let you know, we have the receipts, and we have thousands of them probably. We were right. Everyone else was lying to you. Everyone else was lying. All right. Let's jump into it, and let's break it all down as to what's happening with Joe Biden and what the cuck. Like, why were these... No one at the White House was able to ask about this. Nobody had the guts to be like, yo, Joe Biden's diagnosis is impossible. How do you square that? They're just like, what about Trump? What about Trump? Here's the official statement from Joe Biden. All right, let's dive into it. This is the official statement from Joe Biden. Last week, President Biden was seen for a new finding of a prostate nodule after experiencing increasing urinary symptoms. Oh, by the way, just to let you know how much we love you. We read the Wire story. They trickled a Wire story out about this. And there's no doubt in my mind, these cynical demons, they're doing this because there's a big story, there's a big book that's about to come out about Joe Biden and his mental incapacity, written by Jake Tapper. So it has sort of that like CNN, Jake Tapper and a guy from Axios named Alex Thompson. It has kind of that corporate media veneer of acceptability, right? We've been saying this for years, but nobody pays attention, right? Even though we have much bigger audiences than Jake Tapper or Axios combined, but whatever, who cares? We're running this joint. We're taking over anyway, so we really don't care. But as far as like the crumbling, sickening, diseased elites, as far as those circles, having a book by Jake Tapper and by Axios' Alex Thompson come out, having that book come out is devastating. And it comes out in 24 hours. Wow. And all of the conversation has been about the Her tapes, which were released on Friday, that book, people saying that Joe Biden belonged in a wheelchair. Maybe he was going to have to be in a wheelchair. Why would he have to be in a wheelchair exactly? Why is he always falling over? Why is he having problems with his intestines? Why is he letting out loud farts? Again, this is what's been reported, okay? It's not my words. It's the words of The Guardian. Vis-a-vis the royal family, joking about how Joe Biden couldn't control his bowels when he was in Windsor Castle. These are real stories back from 2021. Well, now we know why. Why was Joe Biden running off set on MSNBC Live? We'll play you that clip. We know why. Joe Biden was riddled with cancer. And now, doesn't the protectionism, Joe Biden disappearing, going to bed, being incapable of like speaking or being awake, doesn't all of it make sense? The limpness and the weakness of Joe Biden. We don't wish cancer on anyone. I've seen my own father with chemotherapy, the effects of chemotherapy. You're weak. You're brought low. You have no energy. You can barely get up. It's awful. It's what Joe Biden was experiencing clearly. It all kind of locks in to make sense. So here we go. He's experiencing increased urinary symptoms. Well, this is a problem. Okay, I'm going to go through this step by step based on a doctor that I spoke with as soon as this was out. I spoke with my nurse wife. I spoke with a physician in my neighborhood. I'm going to break this down for you in a way that's clearer than anybody can. And then we're going to have Dr. Drew on the show along with other physicians. They're going to join us on the show in just a second to talk through this, okay, from a doctor's perspective. Let's break down how this is impossible. What Joe Biden is doing, what they're doing is cynically trying to manipulate the news cycle, using Joe Biden's likely terminal illness to do so. These sick, monstrous demons. I'm sick of that. I can't take it anymore. The evil, I can't stand it. We are people of the light. You can't even fathom the face of evil like this. This is what they're doing, man. Okay? It's so awful. It's so prima facie. sadistic and cynical. Okay, here we go. Here's what the doctor told me, all right? These are directly from the physicians, and then I'm going to back it up with a bunch of other reporting. Here we go. Increased urinary symptoms. Listen, prostate cancer can live inside of your body for like decades. In fact, it's like 80% of men over the age of 80 have some prostate cancer cells in their body. Doesn't mean they're exactly going to die from that, but it's one of those, it's the slowest growing cancer. It's the most common cancer among men, and it's the slowest growing. If you're having urinary symptoms, if you have having trouble controlling your bowels, that means that the cancer is so advanced that it's like it's going to kill you. It's very, very bad. So if he's experiencing symptoms, that's terrible, okay? On Friday, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, characterized by a Gleason score of 9, grade 5 group. Klein, can you please pull up a video from us about 9 days ago, or maybe ALX, one of the producers can find it, where we told you what was about to happen. Because we read that Joe Biden, that doctors had found a nodule in Joe Biden's intestines. And producers will be able to find it. I just want a screenshot. Of the video. I just want to prove it. I want to prove that we not only were we right about this years ago, we were right about this a week ago. We told you what was about to happen to Joe Biden. Why? Because we're from DC, and sadly, it's a curse, not a blessing, but I understand these people. I know these sick PR people. I know these PR agencies. I know how they operate. I know a predictive program when I see one. They were predictive programming Joe Biden's health. They were predictive programming a big announcement about Joe Biden. And we called it out. Here's the video from 5 days ago. Okay. 5 days ago, nearly 300,000 views, us breaking down this little blip on the wire services, little blip that doctors had found a nodule, and now they're looking for more inside of Joe Biden. Now they're doing further testing. Well, why would they were so secretive about Joe Biden's health, why would they drop that nugget into the ether if they weren't planning on a major announcement? So, suddenly they're just the scions of transparency? No. The Dalmatian don't change its spots, as they say. Tigers don't change their stripes. No. This is a cynical PR play because they knew that there was going to be a bombshell series of catastrophic news stories about illegitimate pardons, about an illegitimate presidency, potentially leading to arrests. The first person who should be arrested is Joe Biden's doctor. I'll straight up say it. His name's Kevin O'Connor. Don't worry, we'll get to work on that little man in just a moment. Believe that. But here we go. Okay. So just to let you know, you're in the right place. If you want actual truth, you're in the right spot. If you want the news delivered to you honestly and brutally, and without the fakeries or the cotton candy, then this is the place for you, okay? We were right. We were right. We were right. We were right. Here we go. I called the doctor, and here's what he said last night. He explained the Gleason score of 9, and he sent me this chart. Here's a chart. Gleason score. This is how you measure cancers and how advanced they are, how aggressive they are, how dangerous they are. Let's see. Gleason score, it starts at a 6. You got 3, 4, and 7, 4, 3. It's a little confusing. I don't pretend to be the expert on this. But I do know that this 9 to 10 group is explained as like a death sentence. That's what the doctor told me. That's what the doctor told me. Highly aggressive, rapidly growing, high risk. A lot of cancers start off up here, they move to here. Anybody who's seen a relative succumb to cancer understands this. So you don't just it is medically impossible for them to have not known that Joe Biden had cancer. Let me explain. Metastasis to the bone. Metastasis to the bone means the cancer is so out of control that it's attacked Joe Biden's bone structure, which is where the white blood cells, all your blood is created there. Your blood is cleaned there. White blood cells are created there. When the cancer is in the bones, That's the true death sentence. This was explained to me by my wife, who's treated untold thousands of cancer patients in her career as a nurse. It doesn't matter if it's breast cancer, prostate cancer, intestinal cancer, lung cancer. If you let it get into your bones, you're done. You're cooked. I don't like to say this. I'm not wishing cancer on anyone. I never will. I just want to tell you the facts because you can take them. When it's in your bones, what it's doing is it's attacking any type of system in your body that would keep your body healthy, that can keep your body going. When it's in your bones, you've lost your defense mechanisms. That's what your bones do. That's how God designed them. So metastasis to the bone is a very, very bad thing. It's actually the number one thing you don't want to happen. So here are all these horrible things, horrible dominoes lining up against Joe Biden. Well, this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, so they're admitting that. Cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, allow effective management. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to comment on that. The doctor said that seems insane, okay, given all of the other evidence. But whatever. He's the doctor who treats cancer, not the PR company that's writing this. This is the last one that really bothers me. The president and his family are reviewing treatment options with physicians. They're reviewing treatment options with physicians. But they've already made the decision. A lot of time, this was explained to me by the doctor, a lot of time the prostate cancer is so slow moving and so slow growing, and the treatment options are so horrific and they don't lead to great results. There's something like a 32% survival rate for these cancers. Can you please find that metric, please? Something like a 33% 5-year survival rate. Robbie Starbuck had a tweet on this yesterday. This is not good, okay? So a lot of times people later in life, they find this out and they just say, you know what? I'm just going to live my life. I'm just going to live my life until it just takes its toll. And this is just the way it works for human beings. It's just how it works. Here we go. Joe Biden has a very aggressive form of prostate cancer, metastasis to the bone. Men with prostate cancer, bone metastasis, have a 5-year survival rate of 33%. Not good. And Joe Biden already is in a very weakened physical state. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is what... Sorry about that. I clicked our layout button. My bad. I put this up last night, went thermonuclear viral, got millions of views, 14,000 reposts, 49,000 likes, just explaining the most dangerous cover-up in the presidency. On your screen right here is a letter dated 8 July 2024. 8 July? Wow. That's a day before we posted this, well, a couple days before we posted this. Before we posted this video. This is Joe Biden's little rat doctor. Little rat doctor named Kevin O'Connor. Kevin O'Connor. Here's what he looks like. I know it doesn't even look real, does it? But this is Kevin O'Connor right here. He's a Biden associate. He's in the Biden business. Do you know this? Biden's doctor is also somebody that has business entanglements with the Biden crime family. Biden's doctor, Kevin O'Connor, released a fascinating little letter here that explains that Joe Biden, it took Karine Jean-Pierre, that, Joe Biden's doing great, okay? He's doing great. This has to do about neurology consultancy and how Joe Biden's just doing awesome. Like, he's sharp as a tack. Never been better, in fact. Never been better. Man, that's so annoying having this little pop-up here. I don't know why. But anyway, you can just see it here. It's signed there. And he talks about how wonderful Joe Biden's doing, how he's sharp as a tack. And this comes on the heels of a full physical assessment that was done in February of 2024, saying Joe Biden is fit as a fiddle. So here's where it gets really messy for the Bidens. With the physician, Kevin O'Connor, swearing to the American people that Joe Biden is doing great. Is this criminal malpractice? It's one of two options. It's either because Joe Biden had cancer when he was getting his assessments done. Joe Biden had cancer. Horrible cancer. Mets to the bone. It's the most advanced cancer you can have before you succumb to the cancer. It's terrible. He's riddled with cancer. And his doctor saying he's great. He's doing awesome. So you have two options. It's either like malpractice on the president of the United States, or it's hiding Joe Biden's true diagnosis from the American people, which we damn well have a right to, in order to make our constitutionally protected decisions as to who should lead us. And we don't want somebody, don't want somebody who's diseased, cretinous, child sniffing, out of his mind, cannot walk, like it does not have long to live, guy running our country. Those aren't choices that healthy nations make, and nobody would have made that choice if we had known. And many people could just see with the naked eye where Joe Biden was, the debate with Trump, falling across the stages and so on. Okay. They lied, is the point. They lied, or there's criminal malpractice going on. Let me explain why. Prostate cancer isn't something that hides. It's not something that's hard to find. Prostate cancer is easy to find with simple examination of the prostate or just a blood test. You just get labs. Everyone gets their blood drawn. You get a lab. That lab returns a prostate cancer diagnostic. That's like almost 100% accuracy. Just get a little bit of blood drawn. Boom, you can find out if you have prostate cancer. No problem. Don't even need to do anything invasive. So you're telling me the doctors weren't doing that? You know, George Bush had a regular prostate cancer diagnostic done every year of his presidency. So did Barack Obama. So has Trump. And yet, Joe Biden's is missing. Really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Now we learn Biden has advanced prostate cancer. Advanced prostate cancer takes 10 years to develop to the stage where Biden's diagnosis is. The prostate cancer is also easy to find. Simple blood test or prostate exam give you 100% accurate results. You're telling me that the best doctors and testing on earth did not find Biden's cancer all these years of testing? Bullshit! It's the worst cover-up in the history of American presidency. Absolute scandal. Evil. They hid it for power. And I'm not the only one saying this. Oh, Benny, you're just going on a little too hot, right? Well, listen. When I am telling you the same thing that Morning Joe on MSNBC is telling you, and other respected doctors who will be joining our show very soon, Dr. Stephen Quay will be on our program here in just a moment to explain this. Let's read what the doctor has to say. Prostate cancer is the easiest cancer to diagnose when it first starts, and to watch it progress to the bone and metastasize. The PSA blood test shows a rate of cancer cell growth. For even the most aggressive form, it's 5 to 7 year journey. 5 to 7 years? So you're saying like back when Joe Biden was vice president? Meaning it would be malpractice for this patient to show up, first diagnosed with metastatic disease in 2025. It's highly likely he was carrying this diagnosis for prostate cancer throughout his entire White House tenure, that the American people were uninformed. This is a massive criminal scandal. Okay, so before we get to MSNBC agreeing with me, when Morning Joe and our program have the exact same take on something, it's bedrock, okay? It's not possible, but it is today. AI, we asked Grok, hey, can Grok is the AI that's run off of X, and it's very, very good. Is it possible to have a healthy medical diagnosis in July, but then have advanced prostate cancer mets spreading to your bones in May? It's unlikely for prostate cancer to progress from healthy diagnostics to advanced bone metastasis in May 2025. The disease typically takes years to reach that stage, even in aggressive cases. Medical literature suggests 15 years for metastasis. 15 years? Joe Biden had cancer in the Obama era, with rare high Gleason cancers possibly spreading in 1 to 3 years if undetected. But that's where you get to the real nugget here. The doctor that I spoke with said, I had this dude who lived in a trailer park. And he lived in a trailer park his whole life. He started complaining about aches and pains. And he's just one of those, F the government kind of guys, right? Love those guys. Good old Gadsden flag on the back of his pickup truck. Don't touch me, doc, right? Until you just can't take it anymore and you go in to be seen. And he had Mets to the bone. He had very slow growing, slow moving cancer, was having a hard time digesting. He had Mets to the bone. This is a dude who lived out in the boondocks in the most rural county in Florida. And he came into the cancer center here from his, from the trailer that he lived in happily. And then he got the diagnosis. They decided no treatment. I'm just going to go off and live out my days. Okay? That's what they decided. That's what a lot of people decide with this. But this is the doctor explaining like the circumstances to not find this. You have to be a recluse hiding up in the hills. You have to have like zero interaction with the medical profession at all. Joe Biden had constant medical surveillance. And they didn't find this? Bull. It's not true. It's not true. Dr. Zeke Emanuel. Well. I think this is the brother of Rahm Emanuel, right? I'm pretty sure this is the brother of Rahm Emanuel, one of the top aides for Barack Obama. Boy, this is getting dark. He just said on MSNBC, my monologue. Isn't that interesting? When we're getting agreed with by MSNBC, things are cooking here. He said, there's no way that Joe Biden just got cancer. He had it, and this is insane bombshell, he had it his entire presidency. Well, if this is the brother of Rahm Emanuel, can I confirm that, by the way, is that true? If this is the brother, so this is the brother of Rahm Emanuel, who's the former mayor of Chicago, ambassador to Japan for Joe Biden, and a guy who's, dipping his toes. He's like the architect of Barack Obama's seizure of the White House. Ari Emanuel is also his brother. He's a Hollywood producer. He's like a Hollywood. Yeah, he's like a big time Hollywood producer. Okay. So this guy knows his way around these halls, let's just say. He's also a doctor. And he said that Joe Biden definitely had cancer his entire presidency. Dude, this guy is telling you what he knows. He's taking the doctor hat off and he's just explaining what his family already knew. I love this clip because it's an insight into what the Democrats have been keeping from you. The elite Democrats have been keeping from you the entire time. They made the decision to install Joe Biden illegitimately as president, knowing he was sick and diseased terminally, and then hoping that they could ride that horse through to a re-election and then install Kamala Harris as the first woman president. That was the plan. These evil demons. Listen to this.
You're an oncologist, obviously incredibly respected. You believe that it is likely, just for those just tuning in, you believe it is likely if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you were saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
Oh, if only MSNBC had some type of visual evidence of Joe Biden having intestinal problems live on air. Oh, wait, this clip exists.
And
of a
the ones
fawning-
that didn't vote for your bills but run on them.
That's
too.
right.
Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Nicole. I
much. It's
appreciate
great to
it
have
very
you.
much.
It's
Thank
great
you,
to have
thank
you.
you,
Thank you.
Of a
Don't go anywhere.
Of a fawning Nicole Wallace. We don't need to hear what she says. A fawning, ass-kissing, boot-licking Nicole Wallace, mid-interview, you can hear her start a question. Mid-question, mid-interview, Joe Biden just gets up and wanders off stage. We speculated at the time maybe he pooped his pants. We're not trying to make fun of him. That's what we said at the time when we covered this. This is from 2022. Now we understand. Joe Biden was suffering from a horrible, probably very painful form of cancer, and he had problems with his urinary control. That's what his own statement said. I'm not trying to be glib. We're just explaining to you that this is what was happening here. Joe Biden's mid-interview, and he just look at the way he gets up out of that chair. He's in pain. He's suffering right here. Why would you ever do this to this man? I'm the best friend Joe Biden's got in the world. I'm the person who for years have been screaming out from the wilderness, along with some other people that have been right about this. Tucker Carlson's one. Laura Loomer's been one. Laura Loomer took a ton of heat saying that Joe Biden was terminally ill about a year ago. Boy, it's just easy in this industry. It's so exciting in this industry because we have digital footprints. And you can go back and timestamp it and see who's been lying to you and who was right. Jake Tapper, with his stupid new book out, he was lying to you. Jake Tapper squeeing 4 years ago. Squealing when Laura Trump brought up that Joe Biden was in cognitive decline. Shrieking Jake Tapper. What a fraud. What an absolute fraud. Anyway, here's MSNBC. Hey, Morning Joe. Why don't you just play this clip? Boy, if only there were signs. Here's Joe Biden having a gastrointestinal panic attack live on your air. Maybe this is the adjoining studio. Morning Joe, I'm sure, films next door. Maybe they film in the same set. Did you ever see this clip, Joe? Did this bother you? Is this normal for the sitting resident of the White House to just wander off set live during a mid-interview, mid-question? No. Something horrible was happening, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy, though, are we cooking. We got more to get to. It's really bad. It gets even worse. It always does. Ladies and gentlemen, our Morning Joe is not Morning Joe. We don't watch that show. Our Morning Joe comes here in the Benny Show mug, and inside of this mug is our Blackout Coffee. Blackout Coffee powers our program, keeps us energized, keeps us locked and loaded and ready to cover a wild news cycle. I just had a feeling, I had a tingling feeling, right, yesterday that there was going to be some breaking news, and here it was. Here it was. Blackout Coffee is the American dream. They started as a mom and pop shop, packing up their own coffee, and now their owners, who I know personally, they are patriots. They love this place. They have a 64,000-foot warehouse, awesome staff. They are located here in America, here in the state of Florida, and their product is excellent. I drink it every single morning, and I drink it black. Ladies and gentlemen, you know it's great coffee when you can just have it fresh out of the pot, okay? Please, consider switching today. Don't give your money to these corporate goons who hate you. Don't give your money to libs who want to scold you and shriek at you when you come in to give them your money. Give it to Blackout Coffee. Give them a try today. Blackout Coffee powers our show, and if you want them to power you in the morning, go to blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Use the code Benny for 20% off your first order. Support the American Dream. Drink Blackout. blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Stop settling. Start drinking real coffee. Blackout. All right. So that's I'm not sure what's in the Morning Joe mugs here, but I'm telling you, man, I'm like, this whole thing has got me upset. This whole thing's got me upset. Why don't they call this little man in? It's time. It's time for Congress to get up off their asses and do something. We need to know how deep this rabbit hole goes. This is Joe Biden's White House physician, Kevin O'Connor. Subpoena him. If you ever did a cancer screening, just ask. Did you screen him for cancer? When he pleads the fifth, that's all you need to know. That's it. This also went viral. Dr. Stephen Quay will be joining our program in just minutes, and he'll be explaining this. But now, I mean, the entire ecosystem of medical professionals is collapsing down on Joe Biden and on this now fraudulent cover-up. It's not good. Urologist Dr. Schusterman says it's unheard of for somebody with Biden's level of care to not know he had prostate cancer 5 to 10 years ago. This was a full cover-up. It's unlikely that somebody could get an annual checkups and not notice. He's a former president. He had intensive state-of-the-art care. It's unusual to hear that somebody has prostate cancer when they're annually being followed up with. A Gleason score of 9 is unheard of. So here, ladies and gentlemen, from News Nation is the urologist explaining this is impossible. Add another log to the fire. Let's go.
It's very unlikely that someone could get annual checkups and not notice a PSA elevation over the past, but this is what I typically would see in a VA hospital where a patient hasn't had medical attention in 10 years, presents to an emergency room with bone pain, and then they find that it's metastatic prostate cancer. But in the modern age of medicine, especially the fact that he was a former president, he had intensive state-of-the-art, care where we can see prostate cancer, 10 years in the past. So this is, it's very unusual to hear that someone has prostate cancer where they're annually being followed up. And the fact that we just find it at a Gleason 9 is just pretty much unheard of in this day and age of medicine. Even in the, even in the inner city populations, we wouldn't see it.
So you're saying
this bad.
even in a medically neglected population, it would be surprising to have a surprise diagnosis with a Gleason score of 9. So you're saying that certainly as he was serving in the Oval Office, you believe that he knew that he had prostate cancer, and even potentially as he was running in 2020 before he assumed office?
Well, most likely he had prostate cancer for a long time, and aggressive prostate cancer such as this at age 80 grows over a long period of time. I mean, usually it takes from the first diagnosis of prostate cancer to spread would take 5 to 10 years.
I thought it was about trusting. Remember, trust the science? Remember when Joe Biden says his patience is running low? Saying he has no more patience for the unvaccinated, that this was a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Remember Joe Biden giving us medical advice? Remember that? When Joe Biden said he's going to steal your home and the bread from your children's mouths because you didn't take his experimental therapeutic? You remember that? Joe Biden has been telling us what's going on for a long time. If you were wise enough to follow and to pay attention, as we have been, and we have all the receipts, Joe Biden in 2022, I have cancer. Here we go.
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
That's why I have cancer, says Joe Biden. Okay, are we allowed to believe him when he says true things? What about when his own brother admits this and says we just got to enjoy Joe Biden for the time that we have left with him? Here we go.
CBS News had a brief conversation with Frank Biden, one of President Biden's 2 younger brothers, and here's what he told us. He said, "I'm incredibly proud of my brother. Selfishly, I will have him back to enjoy whatever time we have left. He is a genuine hero. Country over self." It sounds...
That's not something you say about, like, your brother if they're in good health. You don't say, I just hope we have... I didn't wake up this morning and look to my wife and be like, I hope we can enjoy the time we have left together. That's not something. You know, if you want to cause problems in your household, say that. There have been problems in House Biden for a long time. We're the only people who seem to notice. That's fine. You know, it's amazing. You can just play it. There was and we want to like just zoom in on this moment in time because we caught a lot of flack talking about it, and there are various people on the internet who caught tons of flack for just noticing when Joe Biden canceled in an emergency setting. Emergency. Joe Biden canceled a speech he was going to give in Las Vegas. Somebody came to the podium and said, Joe Biden's not speaking. He's out. We find out from the from the Las Vegas police that there was a horrible medical emergency, that Joe Biden had to be medevaced out, that they went back to the Air Force One airplane that was at the airport, and it flew so fast the plane rattled back to the East Coast. And now this is Joe Biden exiting that trip. They lied to you. They said that it was COVID. Does this look like COVID to you? This is Joe Biden being incapable of getting himself into the waiting SUV. Now, he doesn't ride in the Beast. He should be riding the Beast. Why isn't he riding the Beast? Oh, because he can't get into the Beast. Because he has to get down low. Look at this. Look at Joe Biden. Physically so weak, he cannot lift himself into the SUV, already a car that has been retrofitted so that he can exit and enter it. Getting in the Beast is too much. It's all evil. It's all been right in front of your faces the entire time. Just a few weeks ago, Joe Biden was at the Pope's funeral. He couldn't go down the stairs. You know, like sometimes you feel like a crazy person. Are you taking crazy pills? We the only people that are noticing this? Look, Joe Biden like had to grab the arms of two people in order to get himself down the stairs. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is the most evil wife in all of America, Jill Biden. Jill Biden, who dragged her husband out to The View just last week. He's riddled with cancer. They know this. And he's still being used as a propaganda vessel for Jill Biden to get cultural plaudits, to be put on nice TV shows, and to crack jokes. It's some of the most wicked and evil elder abuse that anyone has ever seen, along with Joe Biden's doctor. It needs to be investigated. It's totally abusive. It's why I say I'm Joe Biden's best friend in the world. We've been speaking out against this for years. Watch how painful this is when we have our great doctor guests lined up, Dr. Drew and Dr. Quay. But watch this and tell me that this does not rise to the occasion of elder abuse now that we know what Joe Biden was suffering from a dementia standpoint, from a Parkinson's standpoint, from a cancer standpoint. This is what Jill Biden did to Joe Biden just last week. Watch.
Mr. President, since you left office, there have been a number of books that have come out, deeply sourced from Democratic sources, that claim in your final year there was a dramatic decline in your cognitive abilities. In the final year of your presidency, what is your response to these allegations, or are these sources wrong?
They are wrong. There's nothing to sustain that. Number one. Number two, you know, think of what we were left with. We were left with a circumstance where we had an insurrection when I started. Not since the Civil War. We had a circumstance where we were in a position that the pandemic, because of the incompetence of the last outfit, end up over 1 million people dying. And we're also in a situation where we found ourselves unable to deal with a lot of just basic issues, and which I won't go into in the interest of time. And so we went to work, and we got it done. And you know, one of the things and
Alyssa, you know, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us, and they didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. I mean, he'd get up, he'd put in a full day, and then at night I'd be in bed, reading my book, and he was still on the phone, reading his briefings, working with staff. I mean, it was nonstop. It's the White House, being president is not like a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a life that you live. You live it 24 hours a day. That phone can ring at 11 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning. It's constant. You never leave it. And Joe worked really hard. I think he was a great president. And if you look at things today, give me Joe Biden anytime.
After that taping, Joe Biden got up and shook his wife's hand. It's really painful. We got a photo of it. I'm not sure it's loaded in this. But Joe Biden got up and shook his wife's hand as though he'd just met her. That's not love. It's the opposite of love. It's indifference and or cruelty to Joe Biden. That's why we say we're Joe Biden's best friend in the world. We've been speaking out against this. This is Joe Biden being abused by his family, being dragged around in this sickening state where he can't even answer. He didn't even answer. None of that made sense. As Donald Trump said during the debate, I don't think he even knows what he said. And then Jill Biden has to interject. Is this any way for a man to live? Have some decency. Sail off into the sunset. Get him the help that he needs. Don't keep dragging his half-baked, half-warmed over body onto TV hits so that you can praise yourself. It's totally evil. It's deeply sinister. It's the opposite of love. It's wicked, ladies and gentlemen. We have some breaking news. J.D. Vance has just responded to this crisis with Joe Biden. It happened seconds ago. We want to go there and then get to our guests and have them respond. Okay, here we go. Here's breaking news, J.D. Vance.
Oh, no, you didn't. Speaking of Joe Biden, sir, do you have any thoughts on his diagnosis?
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, of course, we wish the best for the former president's health. And, it sounds pretty serious, but hopefully he makes the right recovery. Look, I will say, whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job. And that's no, that you can separate the desire for him to have the right health outcome with the recognition that whether it was doctors or whether there were staffers around the former president, I don't think he was able to do a good job for the American people. And that's not politics. That's not because I disagreed with him on policy. That's because I don't think that he was in good enough health. In some ways, I blame him less than I blame the people around him. And why didn't the American people have a better sense of his health picture? Why didn't the American people have more accurate information about what he was actually dealing with? This is serious stuff. And this is the guy who carries around the nuclear football for the world's largest nuclear arsenal. This is not child's play, and we can pray for good health, but also recognize that if you're not in good enough health to do the job, you shouldn't be doing the job. Okay, thank you guys.
Good. This is absolutely the response that officials should have. I'm tired of playing nice on this. This was the lives of thousands of J6ers locked in prison. Many of them had cancer. This is the Afghanistan withdrawal, where 13 American service members were slaughtered in cold blood for nothing. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I don't mean for nothing, but it could have been prevented, and their families know that. And Joe Biden disrespecting their families. Ushering in 25 million criminal aliens into this country. Child trafficking. Horrors untold. How many hundreds of thousands, if not millions, died because of Joe Biden in wars that popped up that should never have happened? We were on the brink, teetering. So we're not going to play nice. It looks like the Trump administration isn't playing nice. Here's Ed Martin, who was on our show last week, made a ton of news. saying, fellow Americans, the integrity of the American pardon system requires that we examine the Biden pardons and who did what. We will get to the bottom of it. Count on us. All the best, Ed Martin, pardon attorney. The U.S. pardon attorney can oversee the legality of the pardons. Only the president can issue a pardon, not his staff, not members of his internal nucleus team. The Biden has to issue the president has to issue the pardon and sign it himself. Joe Biden's pardons are illegitimate. That's the groundwork that's being laid right now. Maybe we can go after Fauci after all. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now, somebody who I think wishes we could go after Dr. Fauci. He's a good doctor. Dr. Fauci is the evil doctor. Dr. Stephen Quay went viral yesterday. We were delighted to see that he follows us on X. We invited him on the program. Please welcome this physician, scientist, and founder of a breast cancer prevention company, Atossa Therapeutics. Live now. Doctor, I just want to say it's really easy to take the road out of a news cycle like this and just be like, thoughts and prayers and move on. It's very hard to do what you did yesterday, which was to be the first medical professional to come forward and say, this isn't right. Clearly, someone's lying here. And we just want to thank you for doing that. You sort of started a lot of people thinking in a diagnostic sense about this with Joe Biden.
Well, thanks, Benny. And that is, for good or bad, that is the nature of what I do. Is when I see a medical situation, I examine it, I look for patterns or that sort of thing. And this one stuck out like a sore thumb because it's in the 1 or 2% range when you go from being told you have a normal prostate exam to having metastatic disease, 12, 13, 14 months later. So you are either, in medical school, we learn if you listen to hoofbeats, you should think of horses, not zebras. So the likelihood that he actually had a normal prostate exam 12 to 13 months ago is very unlikely. And then you start to see things unwind. And I've done some additional work on this over the last day or two. The drugs you would use for metastatic prostate cancer are called ADT. So they suppress testosterone levels, androgen deprivation therapies. And the major side effects are falling down because you lose muscle, you lose balance and that sort of thing, and cognitive decline. And this is in peer-reviewed publications. So there may be more to this story than simply we weren't told he was diagnosed at the time he was president. He might have actually been treated during that time, and what we saw in his behavior and cognition might have been side effects of the treatment.
So you're saying that they were covering this up. They knew about it even when Joe Biden was running for president. That's, by the way, backed up by Dr. Emanuel on Morning Joe this morning, saying, and his entire family ran the Obamas and the Bidens, so you'd assume through the grapevine he'd know. He said it's likely that Joe Biden had this cancer while he was running for president in 2020 and 2019, that it was well known and that they were trying to hide it from the American people, which seems deeply unethical.
Yeah, well, in 80 to 90% of the patients who have metastatic disease, the diagnosis was made 5 to 7 years earlier, and that's just what the peer-reviewed papers say. So we're talking 2018, 2019.
And so the treatment, one of the more popular treatments you're saying here, leads to cognitive decline and muscle atrophy, so you might have a lot of falling or brain fog.
That's correct. So let's think about this. There's 4 major cancers: breast, lung, prostate, and colon. Prostate is unique in that it has a very simple blood test that you can use to follow, and the level in the blood test is sort of a linear relationship to the mass of the prostate tissue, and then benign tissue makes less PSA than prostate cancer tissue. So there's some really easy ways to follow this. Now, the way you stop prostate cancer early on is because it's driven by testosterone. You take away the person's testosterone. You basically take away all of their testosterone, and the cancers will stop growing. But the side effects of not having testosterone is you lose muscle mass, maybe 30-40% of your muscle mass. 37% of all men on ADT will have a fall during a year of treatment. And it also has been demonstrated in a very strong study that there is declines in cognitive function. All of the parameters of cognitive function are decreased by this ADT treatment. So in retrospect, we may have been seeing side effects from pharmaceutical treatment of prostate cancer.
I think that really explains Joe Biden's behavior. His behavior has always been so curious and strange, humiliating, and hard to watch, Doctor.
Well, it is, Benny. And before I get too far in there, I wanted to start to just say, look, this is a tragedy. Whether irrespective of politics, he's a man, he's a father, he's a grandfather, a husband. So we feel for the family. We wish him the best. Our prayers are with him. But then, as a diagnostician and a clinician, we do want to examine how he got here and whether maybe some of the things going on was more sinister than we thought, which is to say he was actually being treated for a condition, and the side effects of the treatments may have led to some of the things that we saw and no one explained to us.
What do you believe is the medical probability that his doctors knew that this was happening, specifically his personal doctor who had been with him for decades, Kevin O'Connor?
Well, if you do the reverse of the statistic I said, which is 1 to 2% of people will go from a normal prostate exam to metastatic disease, then the fact that he's not in that 1% means it's a 98% probability that his physicians knew, because again, 98% of the time his prostate exam would have been abnormal last year. So prostate cancer starts in the prostate. The prostate has a nice little capsule. It's, it grows in there for some time, and then it grows locally in the pelvis, in the lymph nodes. So it's local disease, but not metastatic disease. And then only then does it go into the lymph nodes, blood vessels, into the spine. So it's a two-step process out of the prostate, has to grow in the prostate, around the prostate, and then into the bones. And as I said, 1 to 2% of the time that happens in 12 months, 98% of the time it takes 5 to 7 years.
So is it malpractice that we're looking at? Do you think that his doctor didn't do the test? Or do you believe that it's more likely that his doctor knew and was covering it up?
Yeah, again, I'm not a lawyer, but malpractice is the improper treatment, improper care between a doctor and a patient. So I don't believe it was probably malpractice, because I'm sure they would have done the PSA test. It would have been malpractice not to do that test. You do the test, you do a digital rectal exam, which allows you to feel the size of the prostate and its contours and its hardness. There's a sandpaper feel to a cancer that you don't have with a rubbery, enlarged prostate. But all of that is absolutely routine. It'd be malpractice in the middle of the smallest town in America. So at the Bethesda or some of the other places, and for a senator, vice president, president not to have his prostate followed would be malpractice, and it just didn't happen. It was followed, and we weren't told about it.
So you firmly believe that. What consequences are there medically for something like this? It does seem to be a constitutional crisis to keep the health of the president so secret from the American people. I mean, Joe Biden was running for president through last July, and we were being told that he was in perfect health.
Yeah, Benny, I'm going to try to stay in my lane, in the doctor lane, and sure. I do think that there probably is just a citizen. I think I probably have a right to know about this as a citizen, to make a vote on that sort of thing. So. That's my 2 cents worth, but outside the medical range.
Do you think that Jill Biden knew?
Of course.
It seems
because an enlarged prostate cancer is going to have sexual dysfunction factors. You're going to have getting up in the night 2 or 3 times. You might have blood in the urine. There's lots of symptoms around urinary function that a spouse, that a partner would know about.
And so what is to be said about, I suppose, and maybe this is more of a moral and maybe a personal question than a physician's question, but it seems like a very bad thing to do when somebody is suffering through cancer like this, to do TV shows or add a bunch of extra pressure to that individual, like the pressures of the presidency, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I think probably you are going to want to take care of the person first as much as you can, and putting them in situations that they're not capable of functioning at their best is not good for them. And of course, in this situation, you're putting them in a position of great power, great authority, great responsibility, and there's a moral or amoral aspect to that. I think you get there pretty quickly.
Yeah. A final question for you, and this does have to do with inside of your lane in your specific practice. What is going to happen next with Joe Biden? They say they're reviewing treatment options in their press release. What does that mean exactly, and what is the likely outcome here?
Sure. Let's go back, because I think it's important. You have lots of listeners, and every man who's listening has a pretty good chance of having prostate cancer at some point in time. So remember, it grows in the prostate, and it's completely curable when it's there. It goes through the capsule and is in the pelvis, the lymph nodes. It's highly curable there, but when it gets to the bone, it's not curable. You can ameliorate it, you can slow it down. So because it's dependent on testosterone, ADT works very well for about 2 to 3 years. And then, almost like clockwork, Darwin steps in, and because it's under pressure to grow, it wants testosterone, but it can't grow. It will select internally for a cancer that doesn't require testosterone. It then escapes ADT. It's called castration resistant. It's a funny way to describe it, but it's from the days when we castrated people rather than gave them a drug to take away their testosterone. Then you're in the range of chemotherapy to try to stop it from growing. Now, if there's only a couple Mets in the spine, they can do some really selective radiation, which again is going to kill it, stabilize the spine, but it's a pretty intensive. He's in an intensive medical situation now, probably for the rest of his life.
You say it's uncurable when it gets Mets to the bone.
At this point in time in medical care, yes, all we can do is we can't cure it, which is to say, make a person cancer free, and they effectively die of something else. Once it's metastatic, and this is true of all cancers. That's, at my company, Atossa Therapeutics, I'm working on metastatic breast cancer, same situation. If we catch it in the breast, it's 96% curable, and when it's in the bones, it's 25%, 5-year survival. So this is the nature of this stage in cancer's growth.
Well, thank you, Doctor, for coming on the program, and we hope that you're back. We'll see if this pardon against Dr. Fauci stands up to constitutional rigor. Maybe we'll have you back and you can talk about Dr. Fauci.
Well, we can, or we can talk about my book on the origin of COVID, which is called The Code as Witness, coming out in the fall. So, and most importantly, I'm going to talk about what we need to do to prevent the next pandemic, which will not likely be a 1% lethal virus, but might be something much more serious.
Here we have your website, right here. The Good Doctor's website, his biography, his work, where you can find his book on COVID. I didn't actually know that, Doctor, so thank you for noting that. We'd love to have you back on for that. There it is, right there. Stay safe.
Yeah, well, there's a new one coming out. I testified 3 times in Congress about the origin of COVID in the past couple of years.
Oh, well then, Doctor, that's a guaranteed booking back, because that's exactly something that we cover on this program all the time. We found the Doctor on X. Here's his X profile. 20,000 people follow Dr. Stephen Quay. And he's going viral now for all the right reasons, for simply being a truth teller. And that's a brave thing in his profession. And we thank you, Doctor, for being on the program.
Thanks, Benny. Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Drew will be on the program for the first time very soon, and we're thankful for that. I've been a fan of Dr. Drew for a while. I want to show you just a preview of what's to come here. Dr. Drew's tweet last night talking about, I want to pop up my window, please, Klein. I don't know why it's not working. Thank you. To be fair, beginning with the finding of a nodule and then discovering advanced disease does not pass the sniff test, someone not receiving adequate routine health care, this would make some sense. But it does not fit the level of medical supervision given to the President of the United States, says Dr. Drew. Again, Dr. Drew on our program in just a moment to chat about this, and we're very excited about that. Okay, moving on, ladies and gentlemen. You want to make sure that you are growing correctly, and you are growing in your life, that you're growing healthily, maybe that you're also growing things around you. We're trying to grow a company here. I'm also trying to grow healthy children. Part of that is making sure they have room to play. We don't have a big backyard. We have a very normal-sized house and a very normal, nice little safe Florida neighborhood. That's where we live. But with what little space we have, we've made sure that we plant trees. We use fast-growing trees. To do that, Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the United States of America. They have millions of happy customers. I'm one of them. And they have thousands and thousands of different plants that you can choose from. We have made our backyard a little tropical oasis. We even got a little orange tree. Never thought I'd have an orange tree. That's awesome, man. They have plants your yard needs. Fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plant that you are interested in, Fast Growing Trees has got you covered. Their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures that your plants arrive happy and healthy, and their support from the plant experts make sure that they stay happy and healthy. We got these planters, we got these potters, we got these nice little trees rolling in the backyard. My wife's very, very happy. Ladies and gentlemen, you should go to Fast Growing Trees right now. You get 15% off. They're having a spring sale while supplies last. That's an additional 15% off. FastGrowingTrees.com using the code Benny at checkout. BENNY. FastGrowingTrees.com/Benny. It's a perfect time to plant. Use Benny to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Go to FastGrowingTrees.com for more details. Make sure you're growing the right way. Yeah, not the wrong way. A lot of talk about cancer on the program. A lot of talk about, cover-ups right now. And to speak with absolute honesty on medical issues, there's only really one man that you wish to book. It's the good doctor, Dr. Drew, who has no fear of subjects like these and just delivers the brutal facts and accurate readings of, this current political landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Dr. Drew joining the show live now. Dr. Drew, welcome to the program. It's an honor to have you, and the table is yours. What happened when you saw this diagnosis from Joe Biden and his team? Is this possible to develop Mets to the bone, Gleason score 9 prostate cancer in about 100 days?
Right. So first of all, thank you. It was a privilege to be here. Big fan of this show. And when your people came after me, I was like, well, of course, I'd be happy to be here, especially in the face of people trying to make sense of this nonsense again, being distorted, being lied to, being manipulated. I woke up this morning thinking to myself, the press should wake up this morning and think to themselves, we got played. We got played for 4 years, and this is absolute categorical evidence of exactly that. The physician you just had on prior to me, I agree with everything he said. It's exactly right. Look, I've been treating prostate cancer for 40 years. I'm on the board of the Prostate Cancer Foundation. I am a prostate cancer patient. I know this illness very well. And as soon as they said, we felt a nodule, already my spidey sense went up. Because guess what? We don't really even do the digital rectal exam very much anymore. But I thought, maybe for a president you would. You follow the PSA. And they went from, a nodule to advanced metastatic disease. Maybe somebody who hadn't seen a doctor in 5 years. Maybe. As the doctor said, maybe a 2% probability. It's not the way it went. This has been going on for a long time. And you also just heard about how the androgen deprivation therapies cause cognitive decline. They also sometimes cause frank dementia. In fact, I was talking to my own urologist, and I said, hey, if I develop metastatic disease, I do not want androgen deprivation therapy. I'm convinced I'll be one of these guys that will lose their cognition, and I'd rather try other things if it's possible. But that is the stepwise approach to prostate cancer when it shows up as metastatic.
So you're saying that it is a damn near medical impossibility to have surprise Gleason 9 stage 4 prostate cancer Mets to the bone.
The Gleason 9 part, sometimes people present with an advanced stage, so don't focus on that. And a Gleason 9 is highly probable to move along and be very aggressive. But to present in somebody who is the part that doesn't pass the sniff test is He wasn't getting adequate care? No, that's very improbable. And by the way, people, I was looking at my Twitter feed a few minutes ago, and somebody said this isn't the first nor the last time we'll be lied to about a president. And that's true. You got to remember, Woodrow Wilson had a massive stroke, and his wife ran the White House from his bedroom for something like 6 months. But in today's world, where we're on top of everything, it feels so deceitful and such a violation of basic ethics. The person who's running the country may be unable to think clearly, either because he had some Parkinsonian syndrome, which we've all been talking about for years, and that's separate from the prostate cancer issue. All that motoric slowing and the mask-like faces and the hypophonia, the inability to project his speech, that's Parkinsonism. That is separate from what happens from prostate cancer and prostate cancer treatment. So he had a ton of medical problems going on about which we were gaslit for daring to say, hey man, I'd like to know what's going on with this guy. It doesn't look right.
So given that this is your profession and your lane, let's talk about Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who in February of 2024 gave the last full clean bill of health for Joe Biden so that he could launch directly into a presidential run. Was this malpractice? What's your assessment here?
Well, I think he chose his words very carefully. He said he's suited for the position, something like that, which how do you even, we don't have a set of criteria for the presidency, and maybe we should. Maybe there should be cognitive assessments. Maybe there should be physical assessments, because we are living a long time. We certainly have it in my profession. You get referred out if you get too old to be practicing medicine. That's what happens in a profession where there's a lot of responsibility. People monitor it and call it out when they're having dysfunction. There's no such thing for the President of the United States.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to get on an airplane that was being flown by somebody with Joe Biden's diagnosis, with his sets of symptoms, right?
You wouldn't want him as your lawyer, your doctor, your airline pilot. You wouldn't want him as the President of the United States. And my suspicion is that the people around him didn't want it either and stepped in and started doing the governing themselves. This is a scandal, and we don't know the full extent of it yet.
Doctor, given your deep expertise on prostate cancer specifically, can you talk us through when it was likely that they knew that Joe Biden had prostate cancer, and what will be the likely result of this diagnosis?
So it's what normally happens is you follow the PSA and it starts to pop up. You go, hey, let's do an ultrasound of your prostate. Oop, look, we see something there. Let's biopsy it. And if you have a Gleason 6 or less, you might just observe it. Those are not aggressive tumors. You're eventually going to need some kind of treatment. And if the grade and the size starts going up with future biopsies, it's called active surveillance, then you jump in. Somebody Joe Biden's age, you probably would do something like external beam radiation or perhaps radium implants. You wouldn't necessarily go to a prostatectomy. Now, did they do that and it progressed anyway? I don't know. Or did they observe it and whoops, it got away from us because it turned aggressive. We weren't prepared for it. I don't know what happened, but it didn't happen the way they said it did. It didn't. Listen, I don't want to accuse anybody of lying. I wasn't there. I didn't examine the patient. But the fact is, I've never seen a situation, I've treated a lot of prostate cancer, where you go, I feel a nodule. And again, that already is suspicious because you're going to be responding to the PSA before you worry about nodules. But what was the PSA? When did it start climbing? Those sorts of things. And my bet is it was 2 to 3 years ago. That's my bet. And if you look at Joe Biden's decline, it kind of accelerated about 2 years ago. So you have to wonder, I wondered if he was getting treatment for his Parkinson's disease and that was affecting his cognition. That's another layer of intrigue in this story. But now it's starting to look like, well, maybe they knew it was metastatic disease and they started to put him on androgen deprivation therapy back then, which would be the normal progression of things. Now, the physician you had on before, I could tell, doesn't treat prostate cancer now and isn't involved in current research. These days, you can actually send radioisotopes to each individual prostate cancer cell. And that's the way you would treat somebody like a president. But there's no talk of that. I don't know what they're doing. Has he not progressed? They're not telling us anything. And there's an interesting question in here. to what extent does someone who's responsible for leading the free world have an obligation to tell us about his own individual private medical conditions? What is that obligation? And people are not having this conversation. It's an important one to have.
Yes, it seems like something that is constitutionally mandated in a republic where the change of the guard would then go immediately to the vice president. There's succession here. If Joe Biden has a terminal, as our last guest put it, I'm not sure if would you agree with that?
100%. It's not a curable disease. Even with some of the fancier stuff I was describing, the cancer is brilliant. It comes back. It finds a way to push through that. And so, yeah, it is at this stage of history, although one day we look to curing it, at this stage, certainly terminal at 5 years from onset of metastatic disease, which we don't know when that moment was.
So, forgive me for losing it here, doctor, but that is important material information that the president has terminal cancer.
Yes.
They were running him for president, putting him up for debates, having him taunt Trump, say, make my day, pal, while he has terminal cancer. This is insanity, doctor.
It's insanity. I agree with you. And that is why I'm using the word scandal. This is scandalous. And it goes right at the heart of, like I said, I woke up this morning thinking every journalist that was gaslighting us, that was telling us nothing to see here, sharp as a tack, photographic memory, every one of you should wake up this morning, and there's a lot of them out there, and apologize. Van Jones started to do it. I don't know if you noticed. He's going that direction right now. And Van's a great guy and a smart guy, and I expect to see him lead his journalistic colleagues into this, which is we got played, we got gaslit, we bought it, we didn't do our job, we need to do better, and we need to get on top of this story right now so we can fully understand it so this never happens again.
Doctor, I just want to change hats here for just a moment when it comes to the timing of this. There are many people saying this seems quite suspicious. Jake Tapper, who is Van Jones's colleague on CNN, is coming out with a book, Original Sin. It's apparently going to be brutal. It drops in 24 hours. So what do you believe about the motility of potentially releasing this news as an absorption for the criticism of that book and other reporting?
Back to my sniff test, right? Like, wait a minute. Why did they select this moment to release and to try to gaslight us again about, excuse me, oops, we just discovered it? No, we're not buying it. The good news is, by the way, in all of this, is we have alternative media like yourself out there going, whoa, wait a minute. We don't buy your BS anymore. We don't buy lockdowns. We don't buy mandates. We don't buy the gaslighting that you put us through when we can see who you're going to believe, me or your lying eyes. I'm going to believe my eyes, what I see, what I know to be true. And we're going to figure this out. The fact that they did this now, they did it in a way that was inaccurate. Oops, we found a nodule. Oops, metastatic disease. So already there was something wrong with what they were reporting. And they selected to report it. Now, my bet is they were going to try to hide it until he died and then say, oh, he just had really aggressive disease and he died. And then maybe a couple years down the road before the disease really takes him out. But they couldn't. They have this problem coming with the cognition. Look, frankly, if they were smart, they would say, look, he had Parkinsonism. He had Parkinson medication that slowed him down a little bit. He had prostate cancer. They gave him antideprivation therapy. Yep, makes you sleepy, makes you fall, makes you a little slower. But he was still making good decisions. They could make that case. But because they are such lying, duplicitous, gaslighting, there are stronger words I could use, but it's my first time on your show, so I don't want to go all the way there. But that's the problem here, and that's what we must examine carefully, and that's what we've got to understand, so we see it next time, and so we don't fall victim to this. This is not okay. This is not the way this country should be run.
Yes, I like separating the moral question, which is that you don't wish cancer on anyone.
No.
And I didn't actually know that you that you yourself have gone through prostate cancer. I didn't know this. So of course you would never do that, right? You'd never do that. But you need to also ask the question: if the president has a terminal illness,
yes,
we live in a constitutional republic. We have a right to know, because this guy's negotiating peace deals or starting wars.
Yes,
this is a terrible way to run a country. And that brings me to a moral question for you, Doctor.
Okay, here we go.
Which is Jill Biden.
All right.
There's no doubt that Jill Biden knew. You have to assume this. And as a
Jill
wife,
Biden. Joe Biden or Jill Biden?
Yep, Jill Biden, Jill, the wife of Joe Biden, for 4 decades. You have to at some point start asking the question, like, what did Jill Biden know? When did she know it? And how would you, if you love someone, how can you allow the pressures of the most grueling job on earth to befall their shoulders when you know how sick they are? Why would you allow them to keep being trotted out like a show pony, getting whipped on The View? I mean, it's very humiliating. It's degrading, actually. And we're arguing. I can't believe I find myself in this position, Doctor, but I find myself arguing in favor of Joe Biden as Joe Biden's friend, saying this is immoral to do this to him.
Yes, I don't know that I would call that immoral, but it certainly is problematic.
It's not love. It's not love, Doctor. You know,
but I can tell you, and I made this the last couple of years. I was making this case on behalf of Joe Biden's family, which was, it's another family like every other. And when the patriarch starts to get sick, they go into denial. They go into support. He has something called anosognosia, right? Alex Berenson wrote about this the other day, and I thought, oh, he is absolutely right. Anosognosia is a neurological state that people get in where they block their insight into what's happening to them. It happens with many neurodegenerative disorders. It happens with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and addiction. And we are in denial about the denial associated with anosognosia. And in family system where there's an important patriarch, the system will sometimes kick in and support the denial of the patient. They don't want him to have to come to terms with the reality of what's before him. They may be as severely in denial as he is. And let's remember, Jill is not biologically or clinically trained at all. She may not understand what this is. She may reject what she's being told. She may not be able to process it. So she may be equally as in this denial as he is.
What happens next with these pardons, Doctor? What do you? I mean, Dr. Fauci is not on your Christmas card list. I know that. And what happens next, right?
You've just leapt outside of my field of expertise. But let me see if I can come in. The one thing I would say is, again, if they were more honest, if they could be clear and honest and transparent, here to me is a possible defense, which is, hey, man, he had Parkinsonism. It was due to, forget what, Parkinson's disease and Parkinsonism are, they look the same, but they're different things. But I'm willing to just have them tell me he has Parkinsonism. And one of the features of Parkinsonism is you lose the ability to write clearly. And you can even lose the ability to sign your name. And so if they were to say, you know what, we had to use the auto pen because it didn't even look like his signature anymore. And he directed every single one, I promise you, that's that. But he couldn't actually sign it himself. That's their only defense as I see it. That's the only one. But they are not honest enough to use the one thing that you could have sympathy for.
It does seem like they're lying themselves. This might have been a failed PR. Mark Halperin talking a lot about this, how this was intended to be a PR offensive against Jake Tapper's book, but it actually just looks like there's more lying. It looks like what you've done is you've revealed further and greater and deeper lies, actually, that we didn't even know about.
Why they
backfired.
How they couldn't understand, the physicians would go, that doesn't fit right. How they couldn't have understood that is bizarre. It's like, what do you think? I guess they've had their way with, who is they? First of all, I'd love to know that. And secondly, they've had their way with us for so long that they just to become hubristic and sloppy. And we're starting to see through it now. And thank God we are. And let's not let this happen again. I feel bad. Look, I share with him the diagnosis of prostate cancer. And if I were to ascend to some important office, you would have everything. You have all my records. Much the way Trump takes the cognitive test, does everything, throws it all out there. Yeah, you can put your record out there for the public to scrutinize it, and then make your case about your suitedness for the office, whatever office you're running for. But man, we live in weird times. We really do, Benny. If had we not been just through the COVID catastrophe, This would be astonishing to me. But to me, it's just more of the same. The gaslighting, the distortion, the rendering the population delusional. Literally, journalists were delusional about who their president was, and their delusionality caused them to come in on the side of these extreme distortions. They need to look at themselves. They should be really ashamed, and they should be anxious to do better.
So amazing you brought up this delusion. I wasn't planning on doing this, but we just can't get over this clip. It's from 2022 where Joe Biden, mid-interview on MSNBC, just gets up and just walks off.
Oh, yeah.
Just walks off the
Yes,
set.
yeah.
And Nicole Wallace is trying to ask him a question, and she's fawning and groveling and toe licking and boot kissing.
Yeah.
And he just gets up as though he's in the middle of a crisis, maybe like something gastrointestinal. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. But clearly he's in peril. And Joe Biden hurries and scurries off set.
The only time I had seen a president walk out of some public event like that is on 9/11 when somebody whispered in George Bush's ear what just had happened. And he moved away, moved off. If Biden thinks for a second that we're going to imagine that he has something important to get through as he shuffled off. By the way, the gait was classic Parkinsonism when he shuffled off that day, as he often was. But yeah, and then again, Nicole Wallace should be examining herself. Why didn't she? If you look at those clips, she comes back on with glee on her face. Oh, isn't he great? You need to examine yourself, my dear. You really need to look at the job you're doing and why that happened to you.
So setting that aside, let's zero in, swerve quickly back to your lane here. The Dr. Kevin O'Connor. Is there, Americans still have such high regard for doctors, and there is a rule book, unlike the presidency, which should have fitness tests clearly, but doesn't. There is a rule book for doctors.
Yeah.
And what do you believe perhaps should happen to Dr. Kevin O'Connor? Should he be subpoenaed? That many people are calling for that. There should be a full investigation. I mean, it was the American Republic at stake here.
Yeah.
A lot of damage was done during the Biden presidency, and many are now calling for truth and reconciliation. And I believe that would probably focus in on Joe Biden's physician for all 4 years, Kevin O'Connor.
It would, however, to me, it's outside of his medical practice upon which he needs to be examined, in the sense that we have an absolute obligation to maintain the confidentiality privileges of our patient. And he may have put that at the head of his priorities. And it's not an unreasonable thing to do. I don't think it's the right thing to do, but it's okay to have done that. But there may be other aspects of that, what the consequences of that choice were, as you said, that have constitutional implications through which he can be examined more clearly about the choices he made and God knows the influence he was under to make those choices, which is another aspect of this. There's another whole layer that people are going to get into. I know it, which is vaccines. There's Patrick Soon-Shiong is out there talking about how the spike protein, COVID virus, COVID vaccine has knocked out our natural killer cells, and our natural killer cells are our last defense, our sort of scavengers against cancer. And that's some of the reason we believe there's a theory. Again, I'm not bringing in on this theory that's why we're seeing the accelerated rates of cancers and things. If indeed that's in fact true, we may be sort of seeing what we want to see due to some sort of anticipation bias. But that will start to be. I'm seeing it on Twitter right now. People are, it's a turbo cancer. It must have been because he had so many vaccines, so many boosters. Possibly, but we're not in a position yet to say that. But that's going to be the next layer of this conversation for people to get excited about this stuff.
How do we stop this? I mean, just in conclusion here, how do we stop this from happening again? What would be the Dr. Drew regimen to ensure that we have healthy presidents? Man, I got to tell you, I'm sick of being lied to. And you're right. You're right. FDR was in a wheelchair. FDR was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
It was different times. And Americans are responding to one thing and one thing only: transparency, accountability, and authenticity. And that's what Americans demand. It's what we should have always demanded in this country. And so, no, you can't live in a wheelchair in secret anymore, right? Neither can JFK go, bang a bunch of movie stars in the White House, like in secret anymore, right? And I think you can
we won't
argue
stand for that. Right.
It's good. It's good that can't happen,
Yeah,
and the
it's
American
an
public
evolution.
should be fully read in as to
Yeah.
who their leader is and their health. And how do we? What would be your system to fix that?
So what I would say, really the issue is cognition, right? What do we care if somebody has, motoric difficulties or whatever, they're in a wheelchair? Nothing, zero. But cognition, we are very interested in that. We also should be interested in their psychiatric state. I mean, if they suddenly become bipolar or manic or something, we need to know that. So I think there ought to be, I don't know how you operationalize this from, again, a constitutional standpoint, but if you notice Trump does the Montreal Cognitive Inventory every year. That is a great way to sort of screen people. We should agree upon what the minimum score on that should be for a president. There should be some sort of mental status exam that suggests that there, again, some sort of criteria for what it's a slippery slope, people will say, to go down these paths, but people should be in a condition where they can function. By the way, they don't necessarily have to be taken out of the presidency if they're depressed or something. They can just be removed for a minute till they get proper treatment. But the reality of our brains and our brain science and our aging needs to be brought into the modern era as it pertains to our leaders, it seems to me. And so that would be my way of doing it. Now, the other thing you've mentioned a couple of times, that it should be hearings, there should be some sort of reaction for what this physician chose to do. I'm very concerned that there's some saber rattling around things like vaccine safety and whatnot. I'm going to caution people, please don't get in a mode of wanting to be punitive. I understand the feeling, but if we insist on some sort of, you hear all kinds of things about Nuremberg too and all this stuff. If people go that direction, the people whom you want to scrutinize are going to go into complete defensive mode, as they should, and you're never going to find out the truth per se. We need to go on a truth-finding mission so we can understand what the last 4 years has been about and what we do to prevent this from happening again, without necessarily some sort of consequence for those that chose to do this to us. I understand the impulse, but we got to get to the truth. Otherwise, it can happen again.
If you were to ask me to choose one, doctor, I'd say absolutely. I will take the reinforcement to ensure it never happens again, against some type of punitive action against some low-level staffer that ran an auto pen. Like I'd rather us have like they're doing this at the FBI right now with Cash and Bongino. It's like I'd rather fix the systems than to get some type of like instant scalp and then have a broken system for the rest of my life that my kids have to live under, right? And then my kids have presidents with dementia. That's a terrible country to leave to my children, right?
Yes,
so it's like
correct.
Okay, so very quickly, I've never done this on the show, but can you please give me advice? I'm on the wrong side of 30. Can you give me advice to ensure, and we have a bunch of young men that watch the program. Since you're on the prostate cancer board, is that correct? And if I'm getting that name correct?
Yes. So Prostate Cancer Foundation. So
Prostate Cancer, can you give just some advice to make sure that we're not in this, we don't find ourselves in this state?
Simple. If you have a first-degree relative with prostate cancer, you should begin getting PSAs every year at age 40. Everybody else should begin at age 50. If you're of Norwegian, Scandinavian descent, you might want to hit 40, even if you don't have it in your family per se. It's a much higher risk. African-American men of African descent, have a much higher risk of serious disease. You must take this seriously. We're doing a horrible job of screening Black men. You must take it seriously. You must go in. The treatments are fine. I'm fine. I've been treated for my prostate cancer. No side effects. Men hide from this one because I don't want to know because it's going to affect my erectile function or whatever. Not today. Not today. We can do a lot with this without affecting your life and your relationships. So just do the proper screening. I have a lot of very simple advice for you guys, but resistance training, everybody, make that a part of your daily life from now until you're Joe Biden's age. Resistance training every day.
Resistance training, weightlifting, getting in the gym.
Do not leave out weightlifting. Cardio, not so much. If that's what you do, you love it, okay. But resistance training is the key. Sarcopenia is the enemy. Trust me, this will improve your health overall.
Fascinating. We'd love to hear it. We're just sitting, my team sitting here nodding in the studio like, hey man, we're getting advice from Dr. Drew. Perfect. Here, ladies and gentlemen, you should.
Well, here's the deal. I'll have to. This will be a teaser. You'll have to have me back to deliver a few more pearls for you. See, I'm going to hold it right here, so you'll have to have me back.
Please, of course. It's our great honor. And our production chat, made up primarily of young men, is like going. They're eating this up. So thank you.
I got a lot to say to young men. I got a lot to say. Got a lot. You're
changing and saving lives. Here, I believe we have. We have the Prostate Cancer Foundation, right here, and so you can see that, and then you can see Dr. Drew's on X. Put up the foundation, please, Clem.
There's an excellent foundation. We fund the best. We fund the most creative, incredible research in prostate cancer.
There we
go.
And
the breakthroughs we've had, and the breakthroughs we've had in prostate cancer have improved outcomes in other cancers, including breast and ovary. It's just a marvelous organization. And if you have any question about prostate cancer, go there. They can answer for you.
Millions and millions follow Dr. Drew, the good doctor. You can be one of them. Here's his X, but also his YouTube show is poppin'. Board certified internist. Ask Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you're locked in, and please come back. We have so many different questions for you, Doctor.
All right,
Thank
Benny.
you for shedding light.
I will.
Here.
Thank you.
Godspeed.
Bye-bye.
Cool. That's awesome. Getting health and life advice from Dr. Drew. It's great. This is sort of like the state that the country is in right here. Klein, I don't know why my screens aren't working, Klein, so just pop it up. Thank you. This is the state that the country's in right here. Let's have Matt Walsh sort of sum it up nicely for us here. With Joe Biden and this announcement. Here's Matt's initial take, and it matches ours quite nicely. This is the most cynical thing that I've seen in American politics. It's astounding, truly. Biden has stage 4 cancer. There's no way in hell. They just caught it right now. They knew about it for years, lied to the American people, and then they waited until 2 days before a book comes out about the cover-up of his mental decline so that they could change the subject and quietly quell all criticism in the name of compassion. The whole thing is transparent. They're evil beyond words. If you think a man, 80 years of age, gets a clean bill of health to stage 4 cancer in the span of 6 months, then you are too dumb to be taken seriously. You have shit for brains to take any of this at face value, especially from the people who have a long track of lying to you about it. The most interesting question is whether they were secretly treating the cancer all this time, or they decided not to treat it and then kill the president, because the only way to keep it hidden until after re-election, appointing then Kamala Harris by proxy. Goodness gracious. We had something that hit our feed this morning. We've had a number of experts on, but I think that this is a nice insight into how real Americans feel. This is a very interesting little TikTok video that we saw this morning. Just a dude going off in his kitchen saying, "I freaking knew it." Here we go.
Isn't it strange? Joe Biden left office in January. He just so happens to have cancer now. Didn't I tell you? Didn't I say this? Didn't I say it? You did. I said it. I said as soon as he left office, there's going to be something that's going to be wrong with him. Yeah. Now look at him. Yeah. Now he's got cancer all of a sudden. Joe Biden's got 300 doctors, and they just found out he got cancer. This is a Democratic hack job. This is a Democrat. This is another scam on the American people by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi. This is Joe Biden's final scam. This is it. You know there's a book coming out tomorrow that's going to detail that Joe Biden hadn't been the president ever. This book was going to come out that was going to be detailed by all of the Democratic operatives. So it just so happens that on a Sunday, they don't diagnose people with cancer on no Sunday. So Joe Biden gets cancer on a Sunday. The book comes out on Monday. Joe Biden needs to be tried for war crimes. We need to fly his ass to The Hague in the Netherlands and put him on the stand. Because we need to know about Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, and the southern border. Ukraine too. We need to know about all of this. Before he drops dead, we need to fly him to the International Criminal Court.
Does this match some of your sentiment? Are you angry about it? I certainly am. I'm very, very angry about it. And then on the heels of all of this, we have FBI Director Kash Patel and Dan Bongino sitting down for their first ever interview together on corporate cable television and saying that Joe Biden rigged and stole the election. What? From inside of the FBI office. Here we go. FBI Director Patel says transparency on Russia collusion claim in just a week or two. The biggest DC deception we have ever seen. They talked about the J6 pipe bomb. They talked about so very much. This is the clip that sent me, saying that Comey, Peter Strzok, Andrew McCabe, James Comey, who's been brought into federal custody, more on that in just a second, lied to rig a presidential election. This coming directly from the FBI. They lied to rig an election. Rigged and stolen. Take it away, Kash.
I can speak to the folks that were in our seats, our predecessors, and they intentionally failed the American public by putting on the biggest DC deception game we've ever seen. They said the FBI was the most storied institution for law enforcement, and it was. And it will be again very soon. But when the likes of Comey and McCabe and Strzok and company came in here with the James Bakers of the world and intentionally lied to a federal court only to rig a presidential election by lying to the American public and using taxpayer dollars, likely illegally, to fund this entire operation and then withhold exculpatory information from a federal court that I used to appear before to manhunt terrorists, that's what broke the FBI. And then when they were caught, they lied about it. And you and a few others like Dan and others were brave enough to cover it 6, 7, 8 years ago. And we're still talking about it today because as Congress is working rigorously with us, the Crossfire Hurricane documents are coming fast and hard. And they're being sent there unredacted so we can have full accountability. And that's how you restore what the trust that was lost to the American public when it comes to the FBI.
Yeah, but come on, Director, with all due respect, we've been talking about this for a long time, and I've been demanding accountability for many, many years. You mentioned Comey, Strzok, and the rest. They've got TV shows. They've got media platforms. They're fine. There's been no accountability.
Well, look, it's a fair criticism, but what I will tell people is we weren't here in the FBI in the last 5 years when we had statute of limitations that were still in play, where we could have investigated criminal conduct. Most of these statute of limitations are 5 years old. And we will investigate criminal conduct where we find a righteous case to do so and the law and the facts allow us to. But a lot of it we're precluded from. So we'll take the criticism, and it's rightfully so, that could we have done more in the past? Sure, people before us could have. But what we can do now is continue to put out the documents and the information that these people withheld from the American public. And I'm just telling you right now, as much as we know about Crossfire Hurricane, he and I just found out more last week. And we're continuing to work with Congress to put those documents out. That's how vindictive and vicious the former leadership structure here was. Not only did they bastardize the FISA process and lie to the American public, they withheld and hid documentation and put it in rooms where people weren't supposed to look. And it's a good thing we're here now to clean it up, and you're about to see a wave of transparency.
What do you mean?
Just give us about a week or two.
Okay.
Are we meeting with Kash Patel this week in Washington, D.C.? We are headed to Washington, D.C. later in the week. More to come on that. But there was a lot more to that interview, a spectacular hour-long interview with Maria Bartiromo. So much so I cannot play all of it for you here, but I can pick a couple of very important pieces out. First, that last clip, don't let it sleep on you. Kash Patel says that James Comey rigged a presidential election against Donald Trump. Those are his words, not mine, but I agree with them, of course. Peter Strzok rigged a presidential election. They lied to the FISA court. They lied and they admitted they lied. Will there be prosecution of James Comey? You know, he was dragged into federal custody this weekend. James Comey, as we described in multiple on the show on Friday, James Comey posting 8647. That means in pretty basic nomenclature to kill Donald Trump, to order an execution of Donald Trump. How many FBI people are like, oh, he's just being a complete cuck. complete dorkwad on the beach putting shells together. But hold on, like, wait a second. James Comey was running federal law enforcement and at the FBI for 30 years. How many of these agents owe their careers to James Comey? It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing, but it's a reality. James Comey, how many sleeper cells or splinter cells or black ops working groups does he have? Could James Comey order an assassination of Donald Trump? Is it different than some lady in Youngstown, Ohio posting this? From whatever, from hospice? Yes, it is. Because James Comey knows all these guys. And these guys that James Comey knows, they're allowed to carry guns around Trump. So this is very serious. Here's the footage injected directly into my veins of James Comey being brought into federal custody in Washington, D.C. He's being brought into Secret Service headquarters in the Department of Homeland Security. This is him being shoved into the back of a vehicle and driven away by the feds. Not in handcuffs yet. Here's hoping. Okay, back to Kash and Dan Bongino, who are explaining some of the nightmare that James Comey created. Now, Bongino decided to go public about this with a post on X. Hey, Alex, would you mind grabbing that for me? Where he really ripped the bark off of Comey. But here's Bongino explaining, you've got to do this right. You can't do it quickly, or you can do it quickly and not do it right. You have to choose one. And I know that there's been a lot of hate on these guys saying, where's the results? Wait. This is going to be a biblical week. We have information from the inside. It's going to be a biblical week. Pay attention. They've uncovered some massive things. What Kash just said in the last answer. They hid stuff. They snuck it away. They locked it in rooms. We weren't supposed to find it. We are discovering new information this week from the guy who wrote the book on Russiagate and Dan Bongino, who's one of the world's experts. So here's Bongino.
Just got to push back. Listen, we've been here 2 months. He's been here a couple more weeks than that. I mean, we've been here 2 months. You're dealing with a 38,000 member organization and an approximately $12 billion budget.
Fair point.
Where to expect us in 2 months to dig up what was a 8-year, maybe longer, multi-year politicized investigation with multiple layers of processes, from Woods procedures being just thrown in the garbage can and flushed down the toilet bowl, to multiple layers of accountability where people lied and obfuscated. I'm not asking you to trust me. You want this done right or you want it done quickly? Because you can't have it both ways. You want it done quickly, we'll do it. And you know what'll happen? Just what happened last time. Those same Spygate collusion perpetrators sued the government, got money, got all this shit. You want that? We'll do it. We'll do it quickly and do it wrong.
Bongino popping off on X. Here we go. Bongino filmed that interview before Comey was taken into federal custody for his threat against Donald Trump's life. And so Dan Bongino decided to field strip and rip the bark off of Comey publicly here. Let's go. As Deputy Director of the FBI, I am charged. As Deputy Director of the FBI, I am charged, standing with Director Patel, with managing the most powerful law enforcement agency in the world. The director and I are also responsible for looking at grave mistakes made by people within the FBI in the past and ensuring that they never happen again. While the FBI does not have primary investigative responsibility for investigating threats against the president, and we do not make prosecutorial decisions, we do have the ability and the authority to support federal agencies for violations of federal law, and we certainly have the responsibility to comment on matters involving FBI officials. Here we go. Get ready for this gutting. That said, former FBI Director James Comey brought shame on the FBI badge yet again this past week. The director and I spent an inordinate amount of time cleaning up messes left behind by former Director Comey, and his latest actions are no exception. As I've stated in the past, I cannot post openly about all of the things the director and I are doing to reform this enterprise, but I assure you they are happening. Sadly, many of those agenda items are the result of former Director Comey's poor decision-making and atrocious leadership. Those who doubt me, I assure you, when you see what we are about to show you from the inside, it's even worse. I'm addressing this now rather than in our interview with Maria Bartiromo tomorrow because I recorded that interview earlier in the week prior to the Comey incident. God bless America and those who defend her. Bongino getting 2.3 million views, 18,000 reposts, 82,000 likes on this post going thermonuclear viral, 8,000 comments. And now it's time for Bongino to comment on something that is near and dear to his heart, the Fedsurrection on January 6th. As we're talking about cancer with Joe Biden, just a reminder that Joe Biden willingly, wantonly, and excitedly put little grandmothers with cancer behind bars, that Joe Biden was thrilled to do that. Just a mark on moral character of Joe Biden. Many J6ers suffered and died from cancer while being tortured by our government. Bongino wants to get to the bottom of it. Bongino saying, oh yes, there were feds in the crowd, and there's so much more that you don't know yet. Get ready. Here we go.
On January 6th, in the prior Trump administration, I was the chief of staff to the Department of Defense. And I spent 4 years and a minor fortune litigating the truth because people politicized what actually happened on January 6th. And we now know unequivocally that President Trump lawfully authorized the deployment of National Guard. And me, as the head of the Office of Secretary of Defense, with the Secretary of Defense, took that action. When it finally came in, because it had to have the governor and mayor of D.C.'s approval on it. That's the way the law works. And once it finally came in on January 6th, remember, we offered to them days beforehand, and they rejected it. We've put out the letters, and your show has done great coverage showing how it was rejected. We mobilized the fastest cold start in Washington, D.C. since World War II, and the largest occupation of D.C. by the National Guard since the American Revolution. That's what happened on January 6th. But what you and your viewers want to know, now that we've beat back that disinformation campaign with actual truth, is what was the FBI doing? Well, we got answers coming. We just found a trove of information, and it's on its way to Capitol Hill right now. And they've asked, and they're getting them, and you're getting answers on January 6th. You're getting answers on what sourcing was utilized, what money was utilized, how many assets were utilized, who made those decisions. You're getting it. We can only control the FBI, but you're getting it from the FBI.
Were there FBI agents undercover egging people on?
Here we go.
Like I said, that answer is coming. And it's on its way to Congress.
You're about to, I saw it. I saw the portfolio of information. We dug far and wide to find it. And I'm pretty sure now we have a conclusive, definitive answer. But you and the public are going to have it. You're going to see it in writing over to Capitol Hill. But I just want to be sure we're clear, having been an agent and a police officer. There is a difference between an agent, I know you know this, I don't mean to sound ridiculous. An agent, meaning a trained GS 1811 federal agent, and a source or an asset. There's a difference. So when you see the material, which I promise you is coming, again, I'm not asking you to trust us. I know it's coming because I saw it yesterday. When you see it, I just want you to understand that it's not an apology for anything.
Thank you.
But there's a difference between agents and assets. Yeah. And I just hope when people put that information out there, they make the distinction. Not that it's better or worse, but there's a distinction there.
It's a very important distinction.
And I want to level set here. I want the American public to go back and look at what our predecessors stated to Congress under oath, that there were no FBI sources utilized in and around January 6th. I'm going to leave it at that, but go play the videotape and look for this material coming to Congress.
Wow. So get ready. We've had those members of Congress on our program. James Comey, of course, is a regular. Anna Paulina Luna, again. Tim Burchett, also. Time to stack the entire rest of the week when it comes to the Fedsurrection. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's lock in, because I feel like those members of Congress are going to have quite a bit of news to give us about the Fedsurrection, about what happened on January 6th, and most importantly, the shoulders upon which the entire hoax of January 6th rests. We have said it many times on this program. I will assist the federal government. I will throw the full weight of this program behind the capture of one J6er. Okay? I will do everything I can. Where do I donate? How do I help? Please, everyone in the audience, help me sleuth this out. It's a guy called the Pipe Bomber. This guy actually committed an act of terrorism. He left pipe bombs at the DNC and the RNC. And we've spent hours on this program breaking down how the feds rigged the footage, how they rigged the cell phone data, how they actually rigged the bomb itself, how they rigged the reporting. But what, as best as we can, through Darren Beatty and Mike Davis and Julie Kelly and all of our extensive interviews on this, including FBI agents and whistleblowers who have told us that they had the pipe bomber. They knew who it was, and they were called off by the Biden regime. That's the one guy I want to catch. I will admit, I will lend you my sword and all the power of everything that we're building here to catch the pipe bomber. Perfectly happy with revealing who that individual was. Based on all of our interviews and all of our extensive research on this, that guy was a Fed. Or at the least, he was working for the feds. He was planting an op. And that op was to ensure that Capitol Police were drawn as far away from the Capitol as possible at the height of the instigation by Ray Epps and others of the Capitol breach. So resources would be pulled away from the Capitol building. And no matter what happened during January 6th, you could always write the narrative that there were gallows set up and that there was a bombing. You could always put that in a headline. You could always lead with that as your chyron. So if the feds built the gallows, which they did, Ed Martin was on confirming that just a couple days ago. And if the feds planted the pipe bomb, then no matter what happened, even if nobody went into the Capitol at all, and everyone just peacefully marched around the Capitol, which, by the way, was allowable and permitted. That was what the entire march was supposed to be. You march around the Capitol, right? If nobody even touched a barricade, they'd still get their narrative. That gallows were built to hang Mike Pence, and that Trump supporters tried to bomb the RNC and the DNC. And that Kamala Harris, with no explanation, was taken into the DNC for some reason. Nobody knows why. Nobody's ever explained it to it, and Kamala Harris has never even talked about it. So you have the DEI queen, the pinnacle of what Democrats wish to foist and force upon us in this country, with Kamala Harris, and she walked within feet of a pipe bomb? That's the official story, and then she never mentioned it again? Odd that, isn't it? Huh. This guy's on the phone. This guy's on every video camera. The FBI degraded the footage of the pipe bomber for some reason. Still no explanation of that. Okay. Anyway, the point is it's an important question. It's why we constantly ask it. And the entire lie of the Fed's direction hangs in the balance as to who the pipe bomber was, who was paying him, who was directing him to do what. He was a Fed. Let me just tell you straight up. The pipe bomber was a Fed trying to create a narrative, much like they built the gallows. So, ladies and gentlemen, Bongino on finding the pipe bomber. Let's go.
But you promoted Stephen Jensen, the architect of the FBI's overzealous January 6th investigation.
I want the American public to realize what we did. That man was in a position where he literally fought back against the machine who was saying, we want to politicize this event. We want to politicize this event. And at the end of the day, remember, Maria, there's a chain of command here. So you can fight back your chain of command to a certain degree before they fire you. And Steve Jensen and other folks were promoted because they embody what the American public demands of FBI agents.
To get to the bottom of something like January 6th and the pipe bomber case, for example, you need three things. You need people, you need information, and you need people with information. I'll allow the public to put that together and just wait, and you'll see. Nothing we're doing, nothing is by accident.
Very excited about the direction this is going. Very excited about it. Cash Patel and Dan Bongino keep if there's one breadcrumb that trail that gets left between the entire hour-long interview, if there's one thing, and I encourage you to watch the whole thing, right? There's one thing that they continue to tell us in this interview. It's that justice is coming. These people lied, FBI and intel leadership lied before Congress. That is a crime, that those crimes will be exposed, that the evidence has been found, and that evidence is going first to Congress, which has subpoena power over it, and then it will be released to the public. There is going to be bombshell after bombshell from this, and them going on Fox is, them doing this interview is the first warning sign. It's simply a flashing red light to say, we got you. The arrest, okay, fine. The impoundment of James Comey this week is also a warning sign. Like, you're not protected. We've got the head of the snake. It's good signals. It's really good signals that are being sent out. What will happen next? You're going to get the arrest of Hillary Clinton? Okay. That's what Donald Trump promised. Donald Trump promised in a clip that plays in the back of my mind whenever I want a happy memory to fall asleep to. In a world-shattering and political landscape-ripping moment that changed geopolitics and our culture forever, Donald Trump looked Hillary Clinton in the face and said, "You're going to jail." He did this 10 years ago during the presidential debates. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, we may well be on the precipice of something big happening here, as Donald Trump has posted something very mysterious but very interesting this weekend. First, as a primer, and just because it's fun and we'll look for any opportunity to play this clip, please enjoy this, the greatest moment in American politics in your lifetime or mine. There really isn't a close second to this.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
I'm here in the studio with Killer Klein every single day, right? And he's just great. He runs the show. And it's so fun to, it's great to have somebody to bounce off of, right? Because it is a closed studio here. Every time you play that clip for an audience, you will get an automatic reflex chuckle. Even though we've all seen it 100,000 times, you will get an instant chuckle. I bet you chuckled at home. Tell me honestly in the comment section, in the chat. Did you laugh when you heard that? How many times have you seen that clip? 100,000, and you still laugh. It's still just one of the best. Hillary Clinton never recovered from that moment. She lost the election in a landslide. She looks like this now, by the way. This is a semi-recent clip of Hillary Clinton slowly but surely transitioning into George Soros. Oof. Yikes. Woof. There's this Ronald Dahl quote that says, no matter how you start off, if you are ugly and twisted and hideous on the inside, you will become hideous on the outside. And boy, does that ever ring true in our politics. You look at how Tim Walz, Tim Walz is 20 years younger than Donald Trump. 20 years younger. And he's so cretinous looking. He looks so rough. He was like bald and obese and creepy and just degenerate. You look at these people like Pelosi and how it weighs on them. How these hideous lie, they're hideous on the inside and it reflects on the outside always. Look at this with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton has spent the better part of the last few years shrieking and whinging about how Donald Trump stole the election from her. And Donald Trump stole it again. Trump steals it again. Trump keeps stealing the elections. Keep it up. Here, this is great. There you go. President Trump is almost 20 years older than Tim Walz. Who looks older there, right? If you're an ugly, hideous person on the inside, it will show on the outside, guaranteed. Okay. So what are the things that are aging so speedily, Hillary Clinton? Well, President Trump posted a video about the Clinton body count this weekend. And this is the conspiracy theory, according to Wikipedia, which, by the way, is a hysterical Wikipedia entry. Please pull that up. You got to pull that up. Just Wikipedia Clinton body count. It's so funny. It'll have you howling. Here we go. The Clinton body count conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy theory centered around the belief that former President Bill Clinton and his wife, Hillary Clinton, have secretly had their political opponents murdered, often to make it look like suicides. 50 of the Clintons' very close associates who have compromising and criminal material on them have died by mysterious suicide. There's no evidence that the Clintons were behind it. Just the luckiest people on earth. Yeah, all right. Here we go. This is the video. So that's the entry. Feel free to read into it. Obviously, there are major subject matter experts on this that can talk about it in abstention. This was a question that was asked, actually, at the White House press dais at the beginning of the show to Caroline Leavitt. I wish they had, listen, reporter guy, if you had just hovered on that question, then you would have made all of the news today, because Caroline Leavitt would have had to answer about the Clinton body count. But instead, you did the dumbest thing ever, which is to pivot to something else. Let Caroline Leavitt answer the question on the Clinton body count. Here's what he was asking about. This video, ladies and gentlemen, let's go.
Remember John F. Kennedy Jr.? He was declared the front-runner for the New York Senate seat back in 1999. Days later, his plane crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, and his rival, Hillary Clinton, was elected senator. Mary Mahoney was a Clinton White House intern. She knew enough of the inner workings of Bill's sexual advancements to be a star witness during the Clinton impeachment trials. She was brutally executed at a Starbucks she was managing in 1997. In 1993, White House counsel Vince Foster was found dead in Fort Marcy Park near D.C. He supposedly killed himself, and among a lengthy list of potential foul play, the bullet was never found. Then there's James McDougal, a key witness for White House prosecutors. He was serving his 3-year sentence for bank fraud at the Fort Worth Federal Medical Center in Texas. And just before he was to give a testimony before the grand jury, McDougal suffered a heart attack in solitary confinement. In 2015, Walter Scheib, a White House chef hired under Bill Clinton, joined the list. His body was found at the bottom of a river, nearly 2 miles from the base of the trail he was reportedly hiking. An autopsy determined that Scheib's death was accidental drowning, but he might have known too much. 27-year-old Democratic National Committee staffer Seth Rich was shot and killed in D.C. this year. There is speculation that he was the source of the controversial leaked emails allegedly sent by DNC staffers, and that he may have been murdered in retaliation. Then Sean Lucas, the lead attorney in a fraud case against the DNC, was found lying on the bathroom floor by his girlfriend when she returned home on August 2nd. His death was reported classified, pending the results of an autopsy.
This is what you call berserker mode for Donald Trump. Donald Trump was in very good spirits and was wanting to stir things up a bit. Now, by the way, I want to be very clear here. This video doesn't cover Vince Foster. It doesn't cover some of the more high-profile Clinton body count cases. It doesn't cover Jeffrey Epstein, which Kash Patel had repeated the line during the Maria Bartiromo interview that Jeffrey Epstein did, in fact, kill himself in the federal penitentiary. If that is the case, then release the evidence. I am totally willing to accept the hard evidence before us. I'm saying if you can oogle that evidence, show us too. That's my take on this. But this video doesn't include Epstein. This video doesn't include dozens of mysterious deaths around the Clintons? Okay, there's 46 on a list that our team just found of the Clinton body count. People who have compromising evidence on the Clintons. So what are they saying exactly? Like with Cash and Dan, what are they saying? What's President Trump saying in posting this? The Comey being taken into custody and so on. They're saying you're no longer safe. I think that this is going to truly be biblical. There's a lot of great energy. There's a lot of power on our side right now. The president's going to use it. I look forward to being able to cover all of this. We know as a matter of fact, we're not keeping anything from you. We know as a matter of fact, members of Congress have come on our show and said, J6, pipe bomber, COVID, Fauci, it's all coming out. We're going to learn it. We're going to learn all of this. Russiagate, Dan Bongino saying, we just learned brand new Russiagate information. They were hiding it in a locked room. We had to go find it. This is what we have been waiting for. This is what we voted for. And the interesting thing about people who are guilty of crimes is that they act guilty, don't they? Like James Comey immediately deleted the evidence of his threat to kill Trump and then lied about it to the American people. Reflex, these animals, these rat bastards, their reflex. It's sickening. It does dampen the soul a little bit. It like hurts shows like, guys like me and you and us in the chat. It hurts because we were hoping that there would be Epstein evidence and that there would be all of this evidence that would exist inside of the FBI. Watching the ease at which Comey deleted and destroyed the criminal evidence and then lied to the American public about it doesn't lift our hopes that there are boxes of flaming evidence all throughout the FBI. But we're going to let it play out. We're going to let it play out, and we're going to trust Cash and Dan. We're going to let it play out. They deserve that, and ultimately President Trump deserves it. President Trump redirecting the conversation to Hillary Clinton. And I just want to play you just one final thing because it rings like a bell here. If you accuse me of, for lack of a better example, running a Medicaid scam with Dr. Drew. Well, I've never met Dr. Drew. He was just on the show a few minutes ago for the first time. I don't do that. I don't run Medicaid scams. I wouldn't even know where to start. I don't encourage you to either. Carolyn Levitt talking a lot about Medicaid in her press briefings. Let's just weave it all together. If you were to accuse me of that, I would laugh at you. I'd probably come up with a couple jokes about it. And I would brush it off. Ha ha, buddy, go back to the bar. Right? That's clearly a joke. The thing I wouldn't do, the thing I guarantee you I wouldn't do, is get really hot under the collar, angry, and start screaming and raging at the sky that I definitely am not in a Medicaid scam with Dr. Drew. I'm using this as an absurdist example. But is it absurd that so many people close to Hillary Clinton die right when they're about to testify against Hillary Clinton or Bill? I think it seems kind of crazy. But then when you watch the reactions to the Clinton team when they're asked about this, oh, baby, they're hiding something. The reaction says it all. When you're accused of something you're not guilty of, you laugh it off. The way that President Trump went about his trials. President Trump went about his trials like joking and rip-roaring through the whole thing. He's not guilty of this stuff. The Clintons are. Here's the best piece of evidence that they are, in fact, that I have. It's a man named Anthony Weiner, who was married to Huma Abedin. Obviously, that marriage got destroyed for many reasons, mainly Anthony's Weiner. But Anthony Weiner went on the PBD podcast. This is a man who has deep insight into the evils of Hillary Clinton. Anthony Weiner's laptop, man, that's something we haven't asked about in a long time. Maybe we should start asking the FBI about that. They still have it. Anyway, Anthony Weiner on PBD. And he's asked about the Clinton body count. And his reaction tells you anything. Everything. Is this the way that an innocent man reacts when he hears something criminal and true? Go.
the military and dragging their name
I
through the
have a
dirt.
reputation to ask tough questions and piss some people like you off. That's my reputation.
Including dead people who I'm going to stand up for.
Oh, trust me, we are standing up for them more than you are standing up for them.
Let's see. You better get back to that list because we're going to clear some people's names today.
My question for you is, how is it that in the last 50 years, we don't have a single candidate? Everybody has their own. Hey, John F. K. was a playboy with Marilyn Monroe. Trump, Karen McDougal, Stormy Daniels. You know, George Bush linked to 9/11 and weapons of mass destruction. Bill Clinton linked to Arkansas women, all this others. Everybody has a reputation. How is it that the reputation that follows them is people close to them die? Why is that a story that many people believe in? Why is that?
Are the Clintons in their 70s yet? You don't think I can make a list of other people who are 70-something years old and say this person died, that person died, this person died? Hold on.
How come they haven't done that with Bush? He's in the same age.
I have no freaking idea why they haven't.
How come they haven't done that with Trump?
So are you saying, so you agree with what I'm saying?
How come they haven't done that with Reagan?
So
how come they haven't done that with Kerry?
What point are you making about these men and women who you listed?
How is it so many people close to them die? How is it so many people close to them?
Everybody dies.
How is
are you
it so
suggesting?
Many
Okay.
I'm asking the question.
You're asking a bizarre question.
Exactly.
Did people
pissing
die?
You off.
Did people die? No. What pisses me off, and I'm going to say this again because you apparently are not listening to me. You read a list of people off an obscure website of conspiracy theory, taking a Venn diagram of everyone that ever worked in the orbit of someone who served in public life for 50 years, and you listed them, including people in the military, including strangers you could not pull out of a, and you are implying that there's something nefarious. Let me finish my thought. Let me finish my thought.
Please do so, because I got another source coming in here for you.
You're implying both with the question and with the website. The website says it explicitly. You're implying it. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
You're implying that something.
Until he's done. Don't pull it up until he's done. Go for it.
You are implying that something nefarious is afoot both with the question and with the list. Hillary Clinton, she's a big girl. I'm a big boy. You're a big boy. The people that you just listed.
They're all.
Listen to me. No, these are obscure people that you could not pull out.
You're a great politician, buddy.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Fantastic.
You know what? You are the classic bully. You list someone's name, and are you going to go back and clarify it? Are you going to?
Hold on. Hey, hold on. Just a second. Please. Add salt. We should have done Assault That Lib. I cannot believe we didn't do it. We're going to work harder on it. Ladies and gentlemen. Salt the lib, okay? Salt, get that salt up on screen while Anthony Weiner has a absolute raging meltdown here. Okay, I apologize for interrupting the clip. Here we go. Salt this lib. We apologize for not doing the Salt That Lib at the start. We're putting your salt on screen. Let's go.
Listen to me. No, these are obscure people that you could not pull out.
You're a great politician, buddy.
Wait a minute, hold on.
Fantastic.
You know what? You are the classic bully. You list someone's name, and are you going to go back and clarify? Are you going to go clarify?
You know what the qualities of your personality is. You want to really know that.
Ad hominem attack on me is going to somehow clear that person's name?
There isn't anybody at this table that's a bigger bully than you.
I tell you. Oh, yeah? You just listed some stranger with PSC.
Very good deceptive way of pinning. Good for you, guys.
You're reading some. You're reading a conspiracy website.
Good for you.
Some people say,
pull up the Wikipedia,
look at that fucking
Rob,
website.
I just sent to you. Pull up the Wikipedia. Is Wikipedia a conspiracy website?
You want to take?
No.
You want to take a run at me? Bring it all day, pal.
Hey,
bring it all day.
Sweetheart.
Take a run at
Clinton body count.
Conspiracy theory, right at the top. Wait, can I throw a mic I can drop? Conspiracy, right at the top.
What's the point with that?
The point is conspiracy theories are by their very definition unsubstantiated.
How come other people don't have this conspiracy theory? How come Reagan doesn't have this conspiracy theory?
Oh, wait a minute.
How come Bush doesn't have this conspiracy theory?
On the PDB podcast,
how come John Kerry doesn't have this conspiracy theory?
Oh, wow, really?
Why do they, though? Some of the stereotypes are true. Like, you have some reputation. It's true, some of it. Some of the stuff they say about other people is true.
That's not a stereotype. That's a made-up story about strangers.
How come others don't have that made-up story?
People have it all the time. Look at the internet.
Give me another body count with another president or candidate. Give me another person.
Do you really think that someone within the...
Do me a favor and pull up another Barack Obama body count.
Do you really think... Oh, why don't you go to Barack Obama, not born in this country? By the way, where was that podcast? Did you guys do that one?
No. That's never anything we discussed.
Oh, why? Oh, come on. Some people say it.
Anthony,
there's a Wikipedia thing on it. Huh. These people are strangers that you just read a list of, and I think out of deference to them,
You're a dark human being, guy. You're
settle
pretty
down,
dark.
pal. Settle down.
No. You're
You
pretty
should cut
dark.
that
You take
list
the
out.
angle you did. You're
You should
exactly.
listen to me. Talking conference now.
Oh, okay.
You should cut that list out of those
Sure,
people. We can still have
absolutely.
the argument. You and I are big
absolutely.
boys. Cut that list out.
I'm not going to be cutting that list because the world
That's
needs.
right.
Here's what everybody
Yeah,
needs
the
to.
world needs that poor person's family that you can't even name.
Exactly. That some people say, what does it matter now? They're
Some
dead.
people say.
What does it matter now?
Some
They're
people
dead. Can
say.
you play that clip again?
Famous podcast
Play
host
that
says
clip
some
again.
people say.
Play that clip again. What does it matter now? What does it matter now?
These people.
What does it matter
change
now?
the subject all you want. Anyone who read that list
no one's changing
is still
the subject.
waiting for you to come back
Do
to
you
that list and apologize
Do you
to those
realize
people.
why some people
Apologize to those people.
Do you realize why some people?
You should apologize to those people.
Why do you keep saying that? What does he need
Because
to
those
apologize
people,
about?
Listing those people on some obscure website as if something about their death was shrouded in some kind of a mystery dishonors their memory. Now,
this is
if you are Hillary Clinton
Fantastic.
or Anthony Weiner, that
Yeah.
may sound fine. If you are some
Make it
person,
bigger, please.
if you are some person who has one of these jackasses on the internet showing up
Yeah.
at their doorstep
Yeah.
saying, "Tell me about the
Make
death
it
of your father.
bigger.
How did Hillary Clinton?" We had someone walk into a pizzeria in Washington.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Exciting times. At what difference does it make? They're not innocent. And that shows you exactly how sensitive they are to this topic. That means we should ask more questions about it, doesn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're here for. Goodness gracious, Klein. Hour 3 of the show already? Ha! Jeez. It doesn't even faze us. That's exactly right. Okay, here we go. Real quickly. Lady Trucker, pass the bill. Let's do a super chat or two. Pass the bill, Lady Trucker. That's right. We need to reject those people, those the Republicans that won't pass it, remove them. Primaries, thankfully, it passed out of the Budgetary Committee last night. Let's go. Benny, will you grill all members of Congress on your show why BBB is the BBB, Big Beautiful Bill, is a farce, doesn't codify DOGE nor defund USAID, wind or solar subsidies. We look forward to getting into that. We had to take the show to dissect this Joe Biden, this new Joe Biden hoax. So we're not. We'll be doing that tomorrow. Just me, says Hillary for jail. That's exactly right. A shout out to new member Philip 49er faithful. And let's go, Bongino pipe bomber. Unless it was a 7.5 kid in platform sneakers, let's go. Let's look at Bongino's Bono's Bono pipe bomber. Sorry about that. Oh, Bono. Okay, here we go. We're back. Bono gets so much hate from this audience. Elise777, shout out to Betty Rock. Thank you for so much. X22 report has not been wrong in 5 years. Juan 07 might be if he didn't go off the rails. Ladies and gentlemen, Bono. Well, thank you. You rock, by the way. Elise. I said 2 years ago in my podcast that Joe Biden was a hostage. That's right. Goodness gracious. Joe Biden has been running the show, says General Salt. They used Joe as president to run the country the way they wanted. God will be their judge. Thank you, Benny. Thank you, General Salt. How did Jake Tapper convince everybody to spill the tea and write a book in under 5 months? It's almost like they knew that this was all happening. That's exactly right. Eris Vixen. Timing is suspicious, says Sandra Sofel. It is very suspicious. Benny and crew, says John Unison. Off the subject, if Trump can't run in 2028, can voters write in his name on the ballot? Yeah, they absolutely could. But again, the Constitution says you cannot be elected twice. No man shall be elected twice to the presidency. No person shall be elected twice to the presidency, it says. So, I don't know. You know, Trump says now that he's not interested in running in 2028. So I guess I was just going to take him at his word. I think it's funny. I think Trump should run as JD's vice president. I think we should have a Vance Trump ticket, maybe. And then Donald Trump should just go about doing his passion projects, right? Like the border and so on. I think that'd be great. Wouldn't that be fun? I think that'd be fun. Be a good retirement gig for Trump. Cosmo Sherry says, thank you for your honor and integrity and honesty, Benny. We will always deliver all of those things to you. And we don't care how uncomfortable it makes some. It is important to be honest and speak like adults with each other. Isn't Jill a doctor? Is this malpractice? That's right. It says Nonners Gaming. Yeah. Jill is not a doctor. She's a doctor of education, right? Okay, here we go. Marissa Alsheritz says, we are just watching a movie script. Hollywood has moved to D.C. This government is pro-actors, including Trump. Well, Trump did star in The Little Rascals. Trump was in The Little Rascals. The first thing Trump ever told me was that I was in Home Alone 2. Seriously, guys, we asked him about Iowa. It was like Christmas time. We asked him about Iowa and it being like all snowy and then not being. He didn't have any campaign staff. And Trump talked about being in Home Alone and saying it was Christmas time and everybody's watching him at Home Alone and he doesn't need campaign staff because, well, he has this. He saved Kevin. He saved Kevin. It's true. He did save Kevin. This was his hotel. And he let them film there if he could be in Home Alone 2 and save Kevin. And he did. He showed him where the front desk was. Okay. That's just a people's history of President Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be part of history, if you want to be part of the fastest growing news podcast in America, I would like to ask you something special today. I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to our RSS feed, whether it is on Apple Podcasts or whether it is on Spotify. We're going to be bringing the stream to Spotify as well, doing a lot more video and visual elements there. It just takes a little bit of building out. We would like to ask this. It is something free that you can do for us, but by subscribing to our show on either Apple or Spotify, it really helps build the show, and it helps us ensure that we can grow in an industry accepted metric for downloads. And so if you go to our show, The Benny Show, on Spotify or on Apple, these are the two largest podcast providers, then we would deeply appreciate that. And we just want to say thank you. It is a massive thank you for today because we got started early and everyone was here. It's amazing. You get started early and everybody's locked in and ready to go. We will be delivering excellence to you again from Washington, D.C. later in the week. More to come on that. But on Thursday, we'll be at the White House. It's going to be exciting for RFK Jr. and Donald Trump with some Maha stuff. I'll have my wife there as well with Nurse Kate. It'll be a fun family event. And speaking of family, I wish to leave you as my family with a bit of truth. And we do it on every single show. It's called the Verse of the Day. Dear friend, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. 3 John 1:2. What a perfect way to couple this, right? If you have an ugly, hideous soul and a wicked soul, then you just won't prosper. Your soul is connected to your physical reality. So make sure that you are investing correctly. Make sure that you are showing up for your kids, showing up for your community, showing up for your country, and we're going to win. We're going to win it together, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be focused on truth. And that's what we're going to do on this show. It's going to be uncomfortable for some people, just, talking about these kind of health things and stuff, like the dark arts of the Bidens is uncomfortable for some people, but it's important that we say them because if we ignore them, then we're complicit in the lie, all right? I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health as your soul prospers. Your soul is connected to your health, it's connected to your body. And ladies and gentlemen, let's use that body to march together onto victory. It's your boy, Benny. See ya.
Show where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny shows the storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salt in all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.